yet. Hey everyone! Almost messed it up really, really bad there.
Yeah.
Make sure we're clean. We're good, right?
Yeah.
There's no mystical voodoo audio happening to you guys. Us sounding like robots. I hope not, since the clean button doesn't work over here, but the other ones do. How you guys doing? Welcome to the Nintendo Pride Podcast, episode 21.
Hey, it's old enough to drink.
It's old enough to drink. Finally, our new revamped podcast. How you guys doing with our set and all that jazz? You might see a new background behind Eric. Oh my gosh, it's almost like we might be having alternating backgrounds depending on the week. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm your host as always, Nathaniel Robojanks. Of course, you guys know who I am, right? Mr. Nintendo Prime. But to my left and your guys' right is the co-host with the tinfoil hat, Mr. Eric Moore.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And then dead center, kind of floating above our heads, is Mr. SuperMetalDave64. Welcome, sir.
What's up? Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about this week. Like, a lot. Because one, well, you know, Nintendo decided to drop a Direct last week. That happened after our podcast, so we have the Direct to talk about a little bit. Yeah,
I forgot.
Yeah, because it feels like a week ago, because it almost was a week ago.
Yeah,
but it's not for the podcast. So we have some talk about that, some reactions, because I haven't had anybody to discuss it with this whole time. And then we have, let me see, apparently Switch Pro news. So we'll be talking about that for a smidge here, hence the tinfoil hat over here. We'll see what happens. We also going to be talking about Metroid Dread and a little Oled, because both come next week. In fact, Metroid Dread is specifically why I wanted to grab Super Metal Dave, because he's such a big Metroid fan along with me. So it's nice to have someone else geek out about a game that some people still debate if it's even worth $60. So I don't know if we have a definitive answer on that, of course, until the game is here. But I will say some of the reasoning that people don't think it's worth it, I think might be a little, I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Oh, and by the way, did you guys know it's like basically the 25th anniversary of the Nintendo 64? So we'll be getting into that as well. As you can tell, we have a ton to talk about. So, first off, let's just get the elephant out of the room, because it literally broke a few hours ago. Takahashi Machizuki's at it again. At it again. So remember how all you guys got all pissed at me back after OLED was announced, and you were calling fake with the Switch Pro and all this crap, and I just kept saying, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm just reporting on what like the all too reliable Takahashi Machizuki's saying, because he's not your everyday reporter. He reports on a lot of this stuff from manufacturing, and he's usually right. As an example, he was completely right about the Nintendo Switch Lite. Technically, he was completely right about the Nintendo Switch OLED. He just thought it was going to be more than what it is. But he was right on the 7-inch screen, he was right on the OLED panel, right on who's manufacturing it, right on basically everything about it, except for the fact that he kept saying 4K DLSS, which he presumed was a more advanced model on the internals. And now we found out today why he thought that was a thing that was happening this year. It's almost like he was defending himself for being wrong. Because he kept saying, he did say it was coming this year, and he was wrong. Now he goes into why he thinks he was wrong. Because Nintendo won't give him anything. And Nintendo is not very happy with this report. They shouldn't be, because Switch OLED launches next week. Yeah, and as of tomorrow morning, I'll have a Switch OLED in the studio, and we have a whole bunch of plans for that. But the plans almost seem like, do they matter if we're already talking Pro again? I mean, who's going to really care about the OLED when Pro might be back in the news? Mm-hmm. That being said, here's the story as we know it today. Takahashi Machizuki put out a report on Bloomberg today announcing that 11 developers, he kind of inferred they're from separate studios from across the globe, some of them big AAA developers, some of them small indie ones, including Zynga, by the way, who has yet to publish a game on Switch. So that's interesting there. There are some games they're working on potentially that could maybe come to Switch, but we'll see. You guys probably know they're more popular for their mobile phone games, of course. But anyways, 11 are apparently already working with 4K Switch dev units. These units output in 4K and had instructions from Nintendo to develop 4K games. And based on what he's saying, these developers are actually a little bit upset with Nintendo, since Nintendo apparently made it seem to them that this system would be coming out this year. So they've been planning a lot of development resources around this supposed new system that ended up not coming out, instead just getting the OLED, or maybe a better name for it would be the Nintendo Switch XL, because that's basically what it is. There are a bit more quality of life improvements than, say, the 3DS XL. Obviously, the screen is quite literally a better screen, not just bigger. But I'll get more into that into my comparison video on Friday, by the way. So you guys want to tune in, we have the ultimate Nintendo Switch OLED comparison video dropping Friday. I mean, it's going to be the most highly edited video I've ever done. So many different games we're comparing. We're taking apart the system, taking apart the docks, going all the way down to the die. I've got thermal paste coming. I got a whole bunch of crap coming in that's going to make this a lot of fun. And no, I'm not liquid metal cooling it. There's a few people out there that asked me about it. Here's the thing. I know I did it to the Xbox Series X, and PlayStation 5 already had it. Maybe I can arguably do it to the Xbox Series S now that I have one in my house. But here's the thing. I can't liquid metal cool the Switch because even though it technically is copper touching it, it's like copper foil, basically. The liquid metal is going to eat through it. So it'll just literally destroy the system. There's just no... Unless I want to replace it with a completely custom heatsink, which, I mean, I suppose anyone could do. I could liquid... Am I going to be able to liquid cool it? If I could hack it and overclock it, liquid cooling it might be... That might be...
You want to do it to the Switch OG or the Switch OLED?
The Switch OLED.
Oh, wow. I don't think it needs it.
Well, right? I don't think it needs it either. I don't think the OG needs it either. But we'll see.
It's still fun.
We'll see. Because technically, Austin Evans already took it apart. And we kind of saw that the cooling solution is basically exactly the same as it is now. Although, weirdly enough, the heat pipe's a little smaller and the fan is smaller, but the fan also has a different fin design, and it might run at higher RPMs, something that he couldn't tell. I will literally turn the Switch on with the back off and try to get that fan ramped up to see what happens. I'll do what I can to show you guys maybe potential speed differences, really sound differences. Because he noted that it sounded really quiet under load, but who really knows, right? It could also be that his Switch is older, which all of ours are at this point. So then there could be more gunk in it, more dust and anything that might be causing potentially more noise. But I know that sometimes, some Switches are a little loud. Anyway, so he's basically saying that, this is still a thing. He thinks it's probably more likely coming next year. Talked about how there is all this evidence, I guess, not just from actually knowing people that have dev kits. He's literally claiming he knows people with dev kits. This isn't like a manufacturing thing. He's saying, I have sources. They have a 4K Switch dev kit.
And he named the developer, too.
Yeah, like,
which is kind of odd.
Named one of the developers. He, literally said Zynga. Like, we didn't even know Zynga was working on a game for Switch. Zynga. He called out a company that apparently has one of these dev kits, which you never see happen. But I think he wanted to add some veracity to his report because he knew how Nintendo was going to respond.
Right, that was funny.
So literally within an hour and a half of the report going up, Nintendo's company Twitter. They have a bunch of different Twitter accounts. Their Japanese company one is called @Nintendo Co. Ltd. This is basically a way for them to communicate to investors. And obviously, in the wake of this report, well, last time Switch Pro was trending and then OLED got announced, their stock went like this. Now Switch OLED's about to come out, and Nintendo's probably afraid with the new reports, their stock's going to go like this again. And their stock is down 20% year over year. Now, to be clear, Nintendo's sales are technically overall down, but they're still up compared to any other year of Switch except 2020 during the pandemic. So it almost, the amount it's down kind of matches the downtrend in sales. Not that they're not doing phenomenally well. We all know about the records they have on the NDA, right? Or the NDA, the
MPD.
Yeah, the MPD and everything. So yeah, the Switch is sitting pretty. They just got to get some games out the door. They've been really light on games for a while since Animal Crossing. They've had a few, but they're going to be hitting the games this holiday, and it looks like 2022 just sprinting with games all year. So that's going to be really exciting. So 2022 I feel is like Nintendo's comeback year. But here's the thing: Nintendo obviously is not happy to have these Pro things come back up. They feel like it's been a few months. People kind of stopped talking about it. They stopped getting mad at us that OLED isn't that. They've reached the acceptance stage. And then here's Bloomberg, who Nintendo already yelled at once back when the Pro rumors were going on and said, you're wrong. And then they announced the OLED and people were like, oh, Nintendo slapped Bloomberg. And here's Takahashi saying, I have literal developers talking to me with dev kits. And here's one of them. Literally, he's just saying, you want to call me out, Nintendo? It's fine. I know who I'm talking to.
You see this scab here? Not anymore!
Yeah. He's just I'm not even beating around the bush anymore.
Nintendo worded it very cleverly in their tweet, though.
Yes. So the tweet reads as following. This is from Nintendo. They did a two little tweets here. Ooh. So it says the news report on September 30th, 2021. This is Japanese time, so I know a lot of you guys aren't. It's not that day yet, but it is in Japan. Falsely claims that Nintendo is supplying tools to drive game development for Nintendo Switch with 4K support. To ensure correct understanding among our investors and customers, we want to clarify that this report is not true. We also want to restate that, as we announced in July, we have no plans for any new model other than Nintendo Switch OLED model, which will launch on October 8th, 2021. And that's basically where Nintendo leaves it. This is a very typical response. This is basically similar to the same response they gave last summer. Mm-hmm. This is obviously Nintendo saying, hey, we have OLED coming out. Even if this was true, we're not going to admit to it. And the way they worded it gives them an out anyways. That when people, if it does ever get announced, point at Nintendo and go, aha, you lied. Sort of. They have an opt-out. One for starters, Nintendo has directly lied to us before. We have no new models of 3DS coming. New Nintendo 3DS announced a week later. Like, Nintendo's done this before. So if they didn't have that history already, Nintendo doesn't care. They're going to say what's going to help their investors and their stock prices and their sales stay as high as possible. So it's in Nintendo's best interest to deny. And Nintendo, notably, has a general policy we've heard from Reggie. Back when Reggie ran Nintendo of America, that we do not comment on rumors. And yet this is twice now that Nintendo has chosen to comment on pro-rumors coming from Takahashi Machizuki. Very interesting that those are the only people they're talking about. They're not concerned if Emily Rogers is saying something. They're not concerned if other people are corroborating this stuff. Nope. Specifically, this guy at Bloomberg, screw you for basically getting information that you're not supposed to have and having a lot of it. And it's to the point that we can't really deny it, but we're going to deny it because we don't want to get people, we don't want people to cancel OLED pre-orders. We don't want our investors to worry. So here's the thing. I don't know, by the way, if we're getting a Switch Pro, new Nintendo Switch, whatever they call it. I don't know if that's coming next year. He's speculating in his article that it could be coming next year. He doesn't really know because the developers that have the units don't really know. Nintendo isn't really communicating with them very well. He does note that, according to his developer sources, that they feel the reason that it didn't come this year is because Nintendo just couldn't get enough supplies to actually get enough out there. They didn't want to become the next PlayStation 5, where it feels like vaporware because you can only get it within like a second of it going live online, and that's it, and people are fighting over it. And Nintendo wants to avoid that, so they just couldn't get enough of those chips ordered fast enough to do that this year. But they don't have a problem with the OLED or anything else. Getting the chassis made, the board and all that, not an issue for them. And you might be like, what about the screens? Apparently these screens were reportedly from a massive stock of them that have just been sitting around because nobody's using them. Everyone wants to use the flexible ones. And these supposedly are not the flexible ones. I can't confirm that yet. I will confirm that on Friday, whether or not it is the flexible one, but it's just not being used in that way. It is possible. It's also likely that it's not because they don't really need to use that. It's not really a benefit to them to spend more money for a technology they don't need. Mm-hmm. That being said.
This is a great trial run.
That being said.
Well, they have a deal with Samsung, right? So they can use the same screen for a new Switch too. Even if it's that good, they could buy millions and millions and millions of them.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah, easily. It's a very interesting prospect. So to summarize it all up, basically Takahashi Machizuki is saying this thing is real. Here's how I know it's real. I know people that are literally using dev kits with the new technology in it. Here's how the dev kits work. He even explains how the dev kits work, which anybody with any sort of Switch developer kit could confirm. He basically says, it's a Switch, like this, with a cable that comes off that you can connect to a computer. It has more RAM inside of it for debug mode. Otherwise, it looks and feels like a retail unit. And any developer who has a dev unit would be able to confirm that this is exactly how that dev unit works. Now, dev units are different depending on whatever, but I think he put this out there to be like, look, if another developer who's willing to at least say this is how dev units work comes out there, that's just going to add veracity to his report, because how else would he know that that's exactly what the dev unit looks like? He said the difference is on this Switch, the signal coming out is 1080p. The signal coming out of the new dev kits are 4K. So,
Mhm.
you couldn't get exact specs from them, of course. Heavily NDA'd. And he even noted in the thing, I will not give you any exact names of developers because, again, he's not out here trying to get anyone in trouble.
Right.
He's just trying to call Nintendo on their shit and say, hey, I took a lot of flack. But guess what? I know what I'm talking about. What are you going to do about it? And Nintendo said, we're just going to deny.
Except for naming the one developer directly, he did.
Yeah, he named one. I think naming that one
strange.
developer directly was important.
Yeah.
Not only because now Zynga's probably going to get asked and they're just going to deny as well.
Oh, right.
Because they have to. But
it's kind of a safe developer though, because they do mobile games. So it's not like they announced like Capcom bringing Resident Evil Village or something.
They're not burning a massive partner for Nintendo. You know, they might the game they're working on might never even come to Switch now at this point. You know, so like it could be none the wiser. But I thought it was cool that he name dropped a studio. So it's kind of like, yeah, maybe that Studio One doesn't give a shit anymore because they're not going to make it anymore. But they have the dev kit anyways, and they were mad that it wasn't coming this year, and they said, screw it, we're not making the game for you anymore. Very, very possible. What I know is that Takahashi Mochizuki has a very pristine track record with his leaks and reports for all the platforms, by the way. That's just Nintendo. People forget he's been all over PlayStation and Xbox as well. He's been all over some of the prior stuff attempted to be done by Valve with like their Steam machine things that was kind of a train wreck. But he's been all over a lot of the stuff in the tech world and been very, very accurate in, I would say, a majority of his reports. Not everything comes true, of course. Plans always change. Things can be canceled. And he even notes it's possible that Nintendo has canceled whatever this is. So maybe this was a plan, couldn't secure enough. They do cancel it, and they just move on to whatever the next-gen system is. He does say that is a remote possibility, although when you're to the point you're sending out literal dev kits, you're usually beyond the point of canceling, but that doesn't mean they can't.
Right.
But yeah, so it's kind of left this two sides of the field where people who are like, you know, screw Switch Pro reports and rumors. Look, Nintendo slapped it down. LOL. Then you have everyone else saying, well, Nintendo would slap it down. What else are they going to do? And their wording is very key in this because they say Nintendo Switch with 4K support. It doesn't have to be called Nintendo Switch. See, the OLED model is literally called Nintendo Switch still. Mm-hmm. Just parentheses OLED. But it's still technically just a Nintendo Switch. Like, internally, they might put the OLED there for a while. That's going to go away when they eventually phase out the old G Switch. They're going to phase this thing out, and it's going to be replaced with the OLED model, and they probably won't even refer to it as OLED anymore. In any of their marketing, they'll just say the Nintendo Switch, because that's what it is. But then you got the new model that supposedly might be coming, and it could be called something else. It could be the new Nintendo Switch. It could be, I doubt they're going to use the Pro moniker, but for the sake of argument, Switch Pro. You know what happens then? Look at prior systems. The new Nintendo 3DS was completely new branding, and they used that branding on the system itself. You notice on Switch OLED, it still just says Nintendo Switch, suggesting that it is just another Switch. This next one could be an upgraded Switch, have a slightly different branding, and that's how they circumvent around this, because of course they don't have anything just called Nintendo Switch that's going to be in 4K. Of course,
I'm still hoping for a Super Switch.
Yeah, Super Switch. Like,
Yeah.
as I said, it's going to be called something else, and that branding, because it is a power upgrade, will be present on the back.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to say Nintendo Switch. It'll say Super Switch, Nintendo Switch Pro. The branding will be different because it's technically going to be a system that performs differently. See, Switch OLED, it looks prettier, and it improves on a lot of the things that needed to be there day one, but underneath it all, it's still just a normal Switch. You're not going to get better performance. Supposedly. We'll see. It might overclock better once hackers get in there, because maybe the cooling solution is better. We won't know that for a while. Maybe they're using better thermal paste. We won't know that for a while. I know, I think Gamers Nexus is actually working on an OLED right now and coupling it all up and trying to see, you know, how the thermals run compared to the original. So he'll probably have a video out on that next week for like an hour-long video where he really goes through everything, even more in depth than I can.
He's one of the best ones that does that, yeah.
Yeah. But this is where I throw it to you two. What the hell are your guys' thoughts on all this? Because I didn't think we were going to be talking about this until like maybe summer next year. And now here we are, where it seems like Takahashi's like, I'm defending my reputation. Mm-hmm. Here's my sources. Here's one particular company. And Nintendo's like, no. The only system's coming to OLED. Have a good day. It's funny too
Well,
because Bloomberg and Nintendo do not like each other. I don't think Bloomberg's getting interviews with Nintendo for like ever again.
No.
My thought is that I think his reporting has been confused a bit in the past few years because he's getting all kinds of different information. He talked about the Exo screen display was sharp, and he talked about the OLED screen. Then he talked about different developers. It may just be the case where this system is just going through different modifications over the years, and he's like, okay, they're going to release it, but he keeps reporting it. He said 2020, then 2021, and now 2022. Eventually he's going to come out, obviously. But do I think it's real? I do think it's real, but I don't necessarily believe everything that he reports these days because it's been so touch and go with him, with Mucci. But without even using him as a reference, you can just look at the firmware updates with 4K support that Nintendo was updating the Switch firmware with. That was earlier, I think, in January of this year, right? And one of the firmware upgrades, they had 4K support. So, whether or not you believe Mucci or not in his reports, the system is actually real. We know that. It's all about Nintendo just announcing it and then having a plan moving forward. But I do believe it's easy to believe certain things that have happened along the way with 2020 with the pandemic, shortage of chip supplies. And Nintendo's plans obviously have been changing and constantly moving with that over the past year and a half or so, and more. So it does make sense that they would release this new console, this new Switch. But people just need to just wait on Nintendo at this point because they made it clear they're going to deny whatever Mucci says at this point, and they're going to be like, "No, this guy is wrong all the time. Don't listen to him."
Yeah, despite the fact that he's been like right on so much with Switch, including things for the OLED itself. It's pretty crazy. I've never, again, because Nintendo never comments on rumors. It's very weird. I mean, maybe this is just because this is just how Shintaro Furukawa rolls. Because this is a different president, and he might run by a completely different set of rules than the old regime, which was always don't comment on anything. And if they ask you about something while we're still selling something else, you just deny it exists, but only in an interview setting. We don't go out of our way to bring it up.
I think it has a lot to do with what we talked about.
Twice in the last year, gone out of their way to bring it up on their thing to like it almost speaks, because whether or not this stuff is true or not, because none of us know. I don't know a developer with a dev kit to verify any of this. I doubt any of us do. And if we do, that's news to me. You know a developer with a dev kit?
I wish.
How about you? No, you know someone with a 4K Switch dev kit?
No.
Yeah. So we can't confirm or deny any of this stuff. All we can do is look at the facts of the situation, look at what Nintendo says, look at the history of Nintendo, look at why Nintendo has all these reasons to say the opposite of what rumors would say. They're going to comment on rumors. They're not going to confirm them. They're going to say what benefits the company most, which in this case would be that people forget about this thing until they're ready to talk about it. So setting aside Takashi Mizuki, you mentioned, obviously that there was 4K support in a firmware update at one point earlier this year. And then, and people wonder, what's that about? Well, whatever, it's kind of been removed. And then they went forward with things like NVIDIA coming out and saying that they want to start not making Tegra X1s anymore. Now, they've discontinued basically every single version of Tegra X1 that is being made except the one that's in the Switch. But they've heavily hinted that, we want to get off that fab because we can't make as many chips per fab. So it's actually a waste of our development resources. We could actually produce more of these newer chips and more of them in a single run. But there's still the issue of, yes, but Nintendo needs to get the orders in. They have the semiconductor shortage. There's a shortage in a very specific layer that helps make everything work. And some people pointed out to me that this layer that makes everything kind of work super fast in the newer components is on back order, so it's like 2025 or something like that. And that's entirely true. But this also works in the presumption that Nintendo wasn't part of the orders that put it back in the first place. You think Nintendo's not going to just, nope, we're not touching anything hardware-wise now for the next 4 years? I find Nintendo waiting 4 years when we've gotten new hardware every 2 years so far of this generation to be a little sus to think they're going to wait that long. something tells me Nintendo's orders are part of the reason that other people can't get orders in until 2025. Just like PlayStation and Xbox orders are part of the reason that people can't get more of those till 2025. And who knows what happens in 2023, because there's supposed to be new factories opening up, and whether or not that helps with this shortage or not is yet to be determined. Obviously, we don't know where consumer demand is going to go as well. But Eric, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Because I think this is the system that you would be interested in getting.
Yeah, if I needed to upgrade, this would probably be the one, depending on how the OLED looks and works and things like that. And, but no, I was hoping against hope that, the pro rumors were true, because it sounded amazing. And like I've stated before in the past, it feels like Nintendo kind of left things on the table, even though they never specifically said this is what we were doing. Mm-hmm. It feels like they could have gone farther, and they just didn't. And that also could be part of the reason why they are actually responding to this one, because of the massive backlash that they got from the first go around of it. They want to try to squash this as fast as they possibly can. I
also think because Shintaro Furukawa comes from the business side of Nintendo. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a game developer. Mm-hmm. He was an accountant, basically. And he worked there for a long time at various branches of Nintendo. That since he cares more about the business side, the X's and O's, the numbers, more so than game development, he kind of lets Shigeru Miyamoto and all the other people, you guys are the developers, you worry about that. Let me worry about the money. Because that's what he knows. That's what he's best at. That's what his experience is. And it makes me think that both times that these responses came out also happened to be both responses that helped Nintendo financially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When Nintendo never talks in rumors in the past, well, this time, think about like all the rumors that were heading into E3. Nintendo didn't comment on any of those.
Right.
Because they didn't affect them financially.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is Breath of the Wild 2 going to be at E3? Well, we know it's going to be, but we don't have to comment on it. And if it isn't going to be, we still don't have to comment on it.
Right.
They don't care, because what's going to affect their stock more isn't what games appear, it's hardware momentum. Hardware momentum seems to be the big thing that drives their stock prices. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, by the way, stock prices aren't necessarily correlated to how profitable the company was that year. You would think that's how stock prices work, but it's not. It's based on buying and selling of shares. And if something perceived negative happens, even if the company itself is right now the richest company, literally the richest company in all of Japan. They have more cash than any company in Japan right now. Zero debt. Nintendo's sitting very pretty. Leading in console. They own Japan. They're like the only console that matters in Japan right now. Like Nintendo is sitting on top of the world as the lead current console. You can argue PlayStation 4 is ahead, but now that's the last gen. So with Nintendo sitting at the top of the mountain, you would figure who would be selling. Well, you usually sell when you're at the top, and if you get hints that things aren't going to stay there, that's when you would sell. My counter to all of this, just thinking of this from an investing standpoint, if I own Nintendo stock, I know what games are coming next year. All those games are probably going to sell record numbers. The stock price is probably going to go up when those profit margins come in and show Nintendo is back to making 2020 bank without necessarily having the 2020 system sales, because they make way more money on software than they do their hardware. And so if they have a bunch of 15, 20 million sellers next year, that's going to be very good on their pocketbooks, which can be very good on investors' pocketbooks. But that's me, an outsider looking in, that isn't worried about millions and millions and millions of dollars invested in these stocks. So I think Shintaro Furukawa is just looking out for the company. Again, I don't know if this thing is real. I want it to be real. Because I'm a tech guy. I literally love technology. I wish I could afford a 3090 for my computer. It would be sweet. Or a 6900 XT because it's a smidge cheaper. Whatever. I'd love it. I'd love both. Let me get them both. I'll build two different computers. I don't even care. But bottom line is, I don't know. All I know is Switch OLED's coming. We'll have one in studio to make content for you guys as of tomorrow. Next, we're giving away one on Friday. Be sure to tune into that live stream. If you didn't know that, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch OLED. We're giving away a white one. It's open worldwide. All you got to do right now to enter is be subscribed and then show up to our live stream on Friday. Our live stream on Friday is already set up if you want to go, set notifications for it. But yeah, I just don't know about this. My general feeling is it's real. But whether or not it ever comes out, I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't think people should worry about next year if it comes out, if it does come out, because I think Nintendo would do what Sony's doing, like with PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is basically like a PlayStation 4 Pro right now. So because lots of things are cross-gen on it, right? So they may have, if Nintendo releases their next-gen Switch and calls it a Super Switch, they don't call it next-gen or whatever, and they have exclusive games on it because it's obviously substantially more powerful, can play ports from the next-gen consoles. They will most likely make as many games as possible cross-gen on the current Switch for the install base that it has. A lot of Nintendo's games are going to be cross-gen anyway. We already know that. We got Breath of the Wild 2, and we have Metroid Prime 4, Bayonetta 3. Those games, most likely Metroid Prime 4 and maybe Breath of the Wild 2 will end up on this new Switch if it comes out next year, obviously, and run better, look better, and Bayonetta 3 too, obviously. So that's a lot of cross-gen stuff already. So I don't think people are going to be left behind necessarily by a next-gen Switch, because they will still be supporting the current Switch either way. But Nintendo's wording, though, may be something different. We don't know if they call it a new Switch or a Super Switch. But I do think they'll go the route of PlayStation, just make a couple exclusives to get things started. And then like maybe you won't see all exclusivity until 2025 or something like that.
Yeah, so I've had this theory about Switch the whole time, and we could set aside the Pro for this, just in general, where maybe this is just a pipe dream because a company hasn't done this yet, but I kind of envision this future for Switch where they kind of get rid of generations. No such thing as the next gen Switch. It's just, here's our next Switch, and backwards compatible, and everything works, and there's nothing exclusive for a little bit, but eventually there is. And they start doing the full model where eventually they phase out the old model slowly as more and more models, come out that are newer with better technology. And basically, you never have to upgrade for at least 6 years. Every time you buy a Switch, that Switch will probably play everything for the next 6 years before that Switch gets phased out. And it's sort of like a generation, but it's never called that. It's just, here's the next Switch. Here's our upgraded Switch. Here's this. Instead of it being Nintendo Switch 2, and some people might go, that will confuse the marketplace. Maybe. Or maybe it won't at all. Just like phasing out this and leaving nothing but the OLED to buy if you want a dockable version. How's that going to confuse the marketplace? You're just phasing out the old, keeping the new. And you just keep doing that over and over again. And then you reach a point where, hey, until Switch is a platform that people aren't interested in anymore, you can kind of just keep doing that. Now, part of that's my hope that business-savvy Nintendo, Shintaro Furukawa at Nintendo, recognizes a killer idea and that it hasn't ran its course. Steam Deck should be a big indication to them this idea has not ran its course. Keep it going. But Nintendo sometimes doesn't do that. So, Nintendo could Nintendo, and the next thing you know, we're getting a Roku streaming stick from them. I have no idea. Nintendo is a very interesting company. It's hard to predict long-haul future. But it does, at least to me, it feels like they should just keep this thing going, Pro or not. Call it a Switch 2, I don't really care. They should just keep this train going. Why get off the money train now? And for anyone who says they won't do one next year, because of OLED this year, 3DS XL came out, and 1 year later, a new 3DS came out. It was a year apart before we got the more powerful system.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't matter. I think they'll do a cosmetic upgrade for the current Switch and release the next Switch next year, no problem, because they want to refresh the current model until basically at the quote unquote end maybe, and they'll keep it this way for the rest of its life cycle. The nice OLED screen, all that goes, better battery life too, bigger screen.
Plus, it lessens the blow of a Pro release, because if you have the OLED model, you bought the OLED model, and the next one comes out and it looks identical on the front, but just has a different logo on the back and is more powerful, people will be like, oh, I don't feel as bad. I don't have to rush to upgrade to this. And people who waited to get OLED will be like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to upgrade to. And it kind of keeps everyone within the same family. Now, people who own this model or a Lite might feel a little behind, but I'll also remind you this system came out in 2017. And by the time we're talking about this potential more powerful one, it will be holiday 2022. It's been a while. If you're still unwilling to upgrade at that point, that's okay. Nintendo's not making anything exclusive anytime soon, so
Well, and fans also they have asked for an upgraded Switch anyway. Like they were kind of disappointed by the OLED announcement. A lot of people were because they were expecting. Well, that's probably why the rumors too, right? With Bloomberg, and Nintendo got upset with that and squashed it and everything. But look at the Wii. Like Nintendo doesn't just stay on old tech forever. They have to upgrade eventually. So that's going to happen with the Switch sooner or later, and it's probably going to be next year.
We had a $5 super chat earlier from Taker610. Thanks, man. He says, "Give me that OLED. I don't need it, but if I can take it from someone more deserving, all the better." Damn. Kidding. The white dock looks awesome, though. Yeah, the white dock does look awesome. We'll get into a little OLED talk here in a bit. So let's kind of flip things around. So we spent a good chunk here talking about the Pro. Again, none of us know what's going to happen. I guess let's just end that conversation. Eric, do you think we're going to get a Pro or not in the next 2 years?
I would hope so. So, yeah, I'm going to say yes.
All right, Dave, how about you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go as far to say I said Pro was coming with Breath of the Wild 2 like a year ago. I'm going to stick with it. Still going to come with Breath of the Wild 2. Conveniently, Breath of the Wild 2 probably isn't coming till holiday next year.
Right.
Maybe later. Right. Who knows?
That's a good call, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Because obviously they can push the original Switch. What better way to push the next one?
Right.
All right. Let's kind of kick things back a little old school because we did have that Nintendo Direct, and we'll get that in a moment. But one thing mentioned in that Direct was obviously adding N64 games and Genesis games. Games from our childhood, systems from when we were in the heyday of just wanting to be carefree and just play video games and hang out with our friends and go to school and all that. So, kicking it back to those days, specifically the N64. 25th anniversary of the N64 is a thing that hasn't really been talked about by very many people. Conveniently should be, because we just had N64 games announced for the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, whatever that ends up costing. So, Dave, why don't you lead this talk here? What you wanted to add this topic in today? What do you want to talk about here with the Nintendo 64, one of the arguably the greatest Nintendo platform of all time in terms of transitioning to a new generation?
Yeah, that was Nintendo's biggest upgrade from a console generation ever. 1996, from the Super Nintendo, you had them. They were pushing hard the graphics with Super Nintendo. They were pushing that console to the absolute limits. They're adding FX chips to the cartridges. It was Star Fox and like even Doom on the Super Nintendo. They're trying really hard on that console to push graphics. And then for N64, they're like, hey, we got this 64-bit console now. And it was funny. I remember back then, when I first got that console, I was actually arguing with some PC guys back then because they told me that, that piece of garbage Nintendo toy is never going to do anything better than my PC. And that was the big funny thing at the time. In late 1996, the first 3DFX graphics cards didn't come out yet. So you had these pixelated graphics on PC, on the highest end PC games. The consumers weren't able to buy those yet. And I was like, no. The N64 actually can do better than your PC. And they're like, no, that's not how it is. I was like arguing with guys about it, but of course that didn't last very long. And a couple months later, they got their PCs that got way better, of course. But it was such a funny time back then in the 90s. I don't think that's ever happened again since, where a console was better than gaming PCs. But that was like the only time for a few months. I remember that. Like it was such a huge, cutting edge, gigantic leap in graphics at the time. If you were alive back in that time, you guys watching, you would know. Like I first played Super Mario 64 and Toys R Us in the demo. I was blown away. I was like, I gotta buy this, day one. This is like amazing graphics. Oh my gosh! And of course the 3D perspective and controlling Mario. It was like a shock to the system. Your system, senses, because you're playing a game in 3D. Not only Mario in 3D, but also how it looked was so amazing at the same time. So you had that all at once, and you had the analog sticks on the. I had the analog stick on the N64 controller, which never was really done in a mainstream system either. And then you added the rumble a little bit later with Star Fox, and the system set a lot of standards with gaming, 3D platforming, analog sticks, rumble, and just revolutionizing the graphics at that time. It was very, very much a revolutionary system for that. Even though it didn't sell as well as other systems and didn't have very many games, I think it had less than 300 games on the console, but they had huge releases, and it was just a very, very like memorable console for Nintendo first party like games, just making gigantic, setting the stage for their future releases. Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo Kazooie, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Diddy Kong Racing, on and on and on. So many great games. Just less of them, but very targeted, huge, like quadruple A releases at the time. Basically, is what you consider those, like gigantic games. So that's what I remember that was so great about the N64.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the heyday of Rare. That literally, it's hard to be an N64 like mega fan and not just think, hey, half the games you just rattled off were made by Rare. Right. That was a massive company that Nintendo owned half of back then that just did so much to really lift the N64, because, I mean, sales-wise, N64 was kind of a failure for Nintendo. But you could argue so was the SNES, because that's when you had the second consecutive system that had less sales than the previous one, and obviously had significantly less games. Also, the N64, because of the whole PlayStation snafu, began Nintendo's massive loss of third-party developers. So a lot of third parties were dipping out. So how did Nintendo balance that out? They said, well, fine, they dip out, but you ain't getting GoldenEye anywhere else. You're not getting Perfect Dark anywhere else. You're not getting Mario Kart 64 anywhere else. You're not going to get Pokemon Stadium anywhere else. They just really started hitting you with game after game. I mean, Pokemon Snap, we just got a new one. Yeah, the last one was on the N64.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they crushed it with games back on the N64, and it was visually impressive. Even after PC started catching up, because I was PC gaming, it just still wasn't the same veracity as the Nintendo games, because every time they came out, they ran, at least at the time, what we felt like was decent. Today, we might say, all right, so these sub 30 FPS things maybe weren't so great. Right. But back then, we didn't know any better because we had never played games like this before. So it's like, oh, if they're running at 15 FPS, okay. If that's what it takes for it to look this good, cool. We just didn't care. Eric, what are some of your favorite memories of that N64 era?
Yep.
Oh, boy. Let's see here. I know as a young kid, we ended up, my first experience with it was actually renting one from Blockbuster. Yeah. Dropping a name there. And then we rented that with Mario Kart, and the whole family just sat and played for the longest time. And then that Christmas, we ended up getting one. And from there, I just fell in love with Mario 64, Mario Kart, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Snowboard Kids. I mean, this thing I played the absolute living crap out of.
Also, by the way, I apologize to people's ears when I coughed there. I turned the volume knob the wrong way, so you guys just got ear raped when it was supposed to be silent. So
nice.
Sorry about that. I mean, Snowboard Kids, that was one we played a lot of. Like, you, me, and your sister, like, all the time were playing that game. I mean, 1080 back then, another snow game like that.
That's one thing N64 had also was third-party exclusives too. They had
Turok. That was about the only way they got third-party games.
The entire Turok series was exclusive to N64 at the time.
Yeah.
They had Rogue Squadron, the first game on N64.
Oh yeah.
Which was an amazing technical achievement too. So.
And that was the thing, like N64, really, you talked about how like it was ahead of PC gaming at the time. Well, even after PC gaming got the 3DFX and got the better GPUs and could produce better visuals, it took a while for like PC game developers to actually release games that fundamentally looked better than the Nintendo 64. I mean, the popular games back then were still like a lot of, you still had the old Dooms out there that didn't look as good as the stuff on N64. And then even Wolfenstein, like back then, didn't look quite as good as the stuff on Nintendo 64, especially after GoldenEye came out. And like that just looks so much better than what they had. Same with Perfect Dark. And then a lot of the popular games back then were things like RTS games, like Age of Empires. Well, that didn't look as good. So there was. But by the way, I love Age of Empires. So I will never knock that game. I love Majesty. Love those games. Yeah. But like that's what dominated back in the PC days. Back then, anyways. This is pre all the massive games we know today that are really popular on PC. I mean, even starting with like MMOs, like the big one back then I think was RuneScape and EverQuest.
Mm-hmm.
I think those were the two big ones, and neither of them were. Well, RuneScape was definitely not visually impressive.
No.
I mean, Minecraft looks better. Let's just be honest than the original RuneScape. And then EverQuest, which felt like a big deal at the time, but then also compared to N64, didn't really look that pretty. Maybe ran better, depending on your internet connection. Those 56K modems, are what they are back then.
There's also a lot more trial and error with PC gaming back then too. You had a lot more things that would break. A lot less, a more cumbersome experience back then. Now it's so much easier to do PC gaming. Even the consoles are just basically PCs too. So, but back then it was a totally different beast.
Oh yeah, totally different. And you'd have to mess around with things to make them run. So sometimes you'd get like a new version. Oh, like here's Windows 95 ME edition, and then like half your games don't even work on it, and it's just right. It's a lot different now. Like I literally, guys, this live stream, everything is running on Windows 11 beta right now, and almost every program I have used worked. I say almost because today I found my first program that doesn't, and conveniently it's Microsoft Visual Studio, the current released version, the updated. This is our big one. This is what everyone should be using version. Does not work on Windows 11. You have to download their beta version for it to work on Windows 11. So one of Microsoft's own programs. Does that make sense? But again, that's not really a problem usually because even on Windows 11, you can run anything in older Windows modes. It just so happens that Microsoft's programs don't let you do that. Go figure. It's Microsoft for you. But I think PC gaming is very accessible, and Steam Deck obviously is going to make it accessible, even more accessible. We've already seen attempts like Steam Deck, just nothing that's been, I would say, affordable. I always say affordable with an asterisk with Steam Deck because it's also, you don't have enough storage at the cheap model anyways. And like you're missing some of the key accessories. Like people say, oh, the dock, you got to buy that extra if you get the cheap one. So it's kind of a misnomer. I know some people use that price point to like slam the OLED, and I just go, yeah, well, they're different products meant for different audiences, and really, Steam has just got that they have that $400 model just to be like, yeah, look at what we can do for $400. But also, really, you should be buying the 550 or the 650 model because that's really what's going to give you the experience that you expect out of Steam Deck. Now, from a performance perspective, the specs don't change, but you need enough internal memory for this thing. You're going to want some of the accessories that that the other ones come with as well, like the dock and stuff. But that being said, N64 was just an amazing era. Like, as an example, one of my favorite Zelda games of all time came out then, and I'm not talking about Ocarina of Time, because Ocarina of Time's not even in my top 10. It's Majora's Mask. Required the expansion packs. He had the extra, 16 kilobits of RAM or whatever the hell it was. Or was it 32? I can't remember. But it was you had to have that expansion pack to play that game. That's the only reason I owned it was because of Majora's Mask. And like everything about it was, it was. Think about it like this, guys. A lot of you guys that are, I'd say maybe younger than 30, probably didn't grow up in the era of home console cartridges, because that was very much 80s, 90s, a little bit of 70s with some early Atari stuff and stuff like that. But for the most part, 80s and 90s is where cartridges were like this big deal right up until PlayStation. And even then, Nintendo stuck with it till they went with the mini disc of GameCube. So like, this is the final like throwback of cartridges in the traditional sense. I know Switch has them now, of course. Nobody knew that was going to be what Nintendo was going to be running with. But I'm glad they're doing that versus UMDs and whatever the heck Sony was trying to do, because that was a whole mess. It was way better to go with cartridges. And by the way, guys, one advantage cartridges have, especially the Switch ones, is that they can run at like SD card speeds, which means you don't have to install games to your hard drive to play them. You can actually play them off the cart. That is a huge thing that honestly was one of my biggest turnoffs at PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, is that they're basically PCs now because you have to install the games to play them. So you have to have all this storage space to play games. On Switch, yeah, if you buy digital, you do. But for the most part, especially on the OLED one that's got 64 gigs, I think just for save file purposes and updates, you could get by owning 20 plus physical games without even worrying about it, as long as you're not buying like NBA 2K. Because then you got to download like half the game anyways. But if you're just buying like Nintendo games, you're totally fine. You can even play the games without updating. It'd be totally fine. So, yeah, and that was the thing back then. Like, this was just before the internet era started really entering into home console spaces. Because this was like the gen right before like Xbox was coming out and tried to push things with Halo and LAN parties. Yeah, Sony had a few things, but they were mostly relying on, hey, we have all the third parties. Oh, and by the way, you could play music and DVDs eventually, and like that became a big calling card to be like, hey, because that stuff was expensive back then. Believe it or not, guys, you might be able to go to the pawn shop and get a old CD player now for like less than $5, but back then, dude, getting just a boombox with a CD player was stupidly expensive. And for the same price, you can get something that plays video games and also will play music right out your TV, which back then sounded almost as good as most boomboxes anyways, because we didn't know what high-quality audio was in the 90s.
Right.
I mean, some audiophiles did know, but like the general consumers, we had no idea. We used to walk around with the little Sony Walkmans and those really crappy headphones and think that, like, yeah, this is the greatest ever, and it just sounds
Step
like
wrong in there.
It just sounds like
half
shit.
your song.
It just sounds like shit. We like, you guys remember in Home Alone when they had that little voice recording thing?
Yeah.
That was a real product, by the way, guys. And I owned one. And let me just tell you, it sounds way better in the movie than it does in real life. It does not sound any. It's almost as if they didn't really use that in the movie.
It always
they
does,
used professional equipment. But still, it was that was the era that this was don't know any better. So like frame rate, didn't care. Like all this debate now about, oh, this game on Switch is at X resolution. This game runs at like sub 30 FPS. Like nobody cared back then.
No.
The game could have been 240p. Remember, 480 was the max at the time with CRTs. Didn't matter. It could have been 240p and we wouldn't have cared. This was the era of nobody knows any better, so nobody cares.
Right.
Besides the PC Master Race, which is, I can confirm, has always been a thing. Always. It's just always been that way.
Always been there.
Since the little MS-DOS doing text games days. Actually, that even predates MS-DOS, believe it or not. I know this because I'm a big Zork fan, and Zork started as one of those text games on a computer like back in the 70s. But yeah, it's N64 was a great era, and I would argue for me personally, because right when N64 ended, we were going into GameCube, 2000, 2001, heading into those GameCube years. I started high school then. So like N64 was really like the last, I would say, time in my life beyond my very early 20s that I had a significant time to game all the time. Like high school, busy, four-sport athlete, music, band, girlfriend, yada, yada, yada. Didn't really have a ton of time to game. I still gamed, of course, because what teenager doesn't find time to game no matter how busy you are? Especially when you have portable systems and stuff. But like,
the midnight to 4
but honestly,
round.
like,
Once you grow up and start school and go
era,
full time,
I mean, God, it feels weird saying I was probably busting out 60 hours a week, easy, back in those days as a kid on N64, even if I wasn't supposed to. Oh, parents, you left. Well, don't worry, I'll watch my sister, and I'm just gonna play video games at the same time.
Right.
So like that was like the last era for me as a child where I really was the maximum amount of time I've had to play games. And so there was a period in my early 20s and college years when I had a lot of time too, but once I hit 25 and had children, that was kind of the end of that. I still game, everyone. I've been actually gaming a lot more recently, but not 60 hours a week. Just. I know you're a YouTube channel. Have responsibilities in life as an adult, and you'll start to realize gaming is kind of a luxury. But I really enjoy it when I do get to partake in it.
Man, back when I was in my mid-20s, I think the last time I had a binging thing like that for gaming was the launch of the Wii in 2006.
Oh, there it is.
Because I was when Blockbuster Video was still a thing. Mm-hmm. So my friends and I, we went and rented like all the launch games from Blockbuster Video and bought the few that we really wanted. So we were playing like Twilight Princess, Excite Truck, Red Steel, what was it, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, all those games that launched with the Wii. We played the entire weekend because we were able to rent them all at Blockbuster. It was like a weird, very interesting time, and that was like the last time you could do that.
Yeah, Blockbuster was the she's knees. Oh, yeah. You would get like a game every week and just it was great. We also had a local place called Celebrity Video. Mm-hmm. I don't think they liked me very much because I'm pretty sure there's like 3 games I just never returned. Whoops. And never paid them for.
Ooh, the truth comes out.
Oh no, someone admitting it's almost like people who get a game from GameFly and then don't return it. It's like, oh yeah, like you rented a DVD from Redbox, but you canceled your card, so you didn't pay the fee when you didn't return it. don't act like there aren't people out there that have done that. I know people that have done that. That's just the way it is. We got a couple more super chats here. Taker610, $5 earlier said, remember the arcade version of Killer Instinct? Killer Instinct Gold on the N64 didn't quite measure up, despite how hyped the Ultra 64 platform was. Also, one of the few fighting games I enjoyed as a kid, because I'm not really that big into fighting games, Primal Rage back then. The N64 version, that thing was... I felt like it was on, because I played in arcades back then. Like that's usually how we experienced 3D gaming really before the home console space was arcade units, and it was always very specific. Usually fighting games that even felt kind of 3D-ish.
Yeah, in the chat, one of the best N64 ports of the arcade was actually Mortal Kombat Trilogy. If you want to play a good arcade port from the 90s, that's fantastic. Very underrated.
Still alive hit us with another $5. It says, I just played and beat Metroid Zero Mission. Moving on to Return of Samus next. Any of you guys playing any Metroid games before Dread comes out? We'll get to that in a moment. That's actually our next topic is talking about Metroid. All right, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's nice to have a little talk. Is there anything else you guys want to add to N64 before we move on?
I think I'm good.
I mean, I was about to put you guys on the spot and say top 3, but then it's just. I mean, that's really on the spot unless you already know what your top 3 is, because there's so many good ones.
Conquer, Snowboard Kid, and Mario 64.
Oh, there it is. Which one's at the top though? Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
Conquer's Bad Fur Day.
Okay.
I don't have a top 3. It's too much.
Too much nostalgia.
I have a 1A, 1B, 1C, 4A.
I mean, for me, it's GoldenEye. At the top.
Yeah, pretty much.
I literally broke so many controllers playing that game. Single player and multiplayer.
Yeah.
Mario Kart. That was the one that really got me into Mario Kart. Even to this day, thank that game for me loving Mario Kart today.
Right. Yeah.
And then Conquer for me too.
No, I think the one.
Surprising, none of us put Banjo-Kazooie up there.
God,
there's too many good ones. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Like there wasn't a lot of games, but like you could pretty much walk into a Best Buy, guys, and grab almost any, like at least one out of every 3 games on the shelf was a banger.
Yeah.
Like think about going to your Walmart right now and just randomly picking a game for any system today. How much can you guarantee that 1 out of every 3 that you grab is going to be a banger? It just doesn't happen. There's so many. No. Back then, it almost was a benefit to people who owned an N64 to know, no matter what we rent, we're probably going to have a damn good time.
Right.
I mean, even Quest 64, not really that great of a game in hindsight, but back then, it was all right. Yeah. It was all right. But in hindsight, it's not very good. But it doesn't matter. You don't know any better. This is such an early day. Everything felt great. Even Donkey Kong 64, which, again, not really that good of a game. It felt great back then.
Damn straight. No, you mentioned controller wreckers. That one definitely belongs to Pokemon Stadium.
Oh, the mini games. Oh, especially the Ekans ring toss.
No.
Oh.
The Diglett dig. Or no, not the Diglett.
Destroyed the stick,
The Sand Slash dig.
Oh my gosh.
Where you take the controller, set it down on the top because you had to alternate the shoulder buttons. So you set it down on top and then just rock it back and forth, and you would absolutely destroy everything.
Yeah, but that's just like
including your controller, because that's where the wire came in.
Yeah, well, not only that, there was also that reminds me of back in the NES days with track and field, where you put the pencil between the A and B button and just go like this, go really, really fast and just destroy it. Like, what are you doing?
Or the one where
I'm dominating. That's what I'm doing.
Or the one with the pad where you'd just put your heels on and just
you put your heels on it, barely move, but it registers as going super fast.
And then
you're supposed to be running, but you're not. Yeah.
But then you jump off the pad.
Yeah, it says don't jump off the pad for the long jump. You jump off the pad and then jump back on the pad.
Which Mario Party game was it that you had to twirl the stick?
Oh
and I think that broke some controllers.
Yeah, back then wasn't that Mario Party 3?
I don't know, but that was part of. That was also that same mechanic was in Pokemon Stadium too. And again, you could put it out. You could put the controller with the stick down and just kind of rock the crap out of it. Still just go. I remember.
That's how they sold more controllers to you.
I think I still have indents in my palms from that freaking joystick.
That's probably what this little mark here that's been there like for the last 20 years of my life.
Right.
That's probably from those days.
Tattoo indentation.
And by the way, guys, I really hope when we get these $50 N64 controllers that Nintendo updated the stick.
Yeah.
I'm like really hoping that they didn't go super classic, because you're gonna break that stick in like the first week if you're playing N64 games hardcore.
You talk about Joy-Con.
I'm assuming.
Talk about Joy-Con.
Yeah, Joy-Con drift ain't got nothing on N64 controllers.
Those things were Joy-Con like
See, Joy-Con drift can be like
terrible.
fixed, or nowadays we could self-repair. Couldn't really self-repair back then. And let me just tell you, if you ever played an N64, you know what the white powder is, and you know the crappy controller you handed your friend as you played with the new one.
Oh yeah, they made bank on controllers back then. They
True.
had
Oh,
to,
they had
with
to.
how
Those
how
controllers were
often
not
those
made
things
to
were.
last. Now, yeah, it did popularize control sticks, and it
Yeah.
ended up being normal moving forward, and that's cool. It's just that stick was not a good stick.
No.
But like we didn't. Again, it's one of those we didn't know any better. Oh, it broke. Well, whatever. It still was really fun
It
while
still
it worked.
works.
It was fun while it
Itch.
worked. Yeah, if you like hold it slightly this way, turn it this way, kind of like grind it down
Oh,
and
yeah.
move, you can still get your movement.
yeah.
Oh my god, the things I did with those controllers.
Uh-huh.
So you never had to worry about that with Genesis or any of that stuff because like, there was no control stick. Don't worry about it. Or if you're like using a flight stick on a PC, you're using a flight stick. Those things were
Yeah.
way more durable. Even like go back on the Atari with their giant control, like way more durable.
Uh-huh.
This, it was bad. But I'm assuming they're using a more modern one and it just has the same outside design. I'm hoping.
hopefully.
Yes.
If they do go truly nostalgic classic, I guess I'll get to relive the feeling of
snap in
breaking
the stick.
a snap in the stick and handing that one to you
Yep.
as I order a new one.
Right.
Anyway,
$50 well spent.
Yeah.
So moving on to our next topic because we had someone ask about Metroid. In fact, let's start it with that because Metroid Dread's coming next week. Same day as Switch OLED. I'm sure everyone knows by now. If you don't, that's cool. Maybe Metroid's not your thing. Maybe Switch OLED's not your thing. That's fine. But like still, I mentioned that he just played Zero Mission, and he's going on to Return of Samus. I assume that you're playing the 3DS on there. Any of you guys played any Metroid games before Dread comes out? So personally, I am not playing any games heading into it. I had thought about replaying the first 4, but then I decided that, well, that might be a good idea, especially because I haven't played most of these since I was a kid. Because God, how long has it been since we had like the original Metroid games? 20 years or something. It's been a long ass time. So I don't really remember the story at all, and this is supposed to be the end of the main core story, not the end of Metroid,
Right.
but the end of the main core story. So I don't really remember it, and I feel like I already know they're. By the way, you guys can go into Dread without playing the prior ones. They're recapping everything at the very beginning of the game, so it won't matter if you don't know the story. They'll tell you the story, which is brilliant on Nintendo. I think more games should do this, even if they are coming out within like 5 years of the last one. Hey, open your game up to more people by having them not have to play the prior ones to know what the hell's going on. Kudos to Nintendo for that. But like, I decided that it's been so long, and this game looks, plays, and almost feels a bit fundamentally different from what I could see compared to the old ones. Not necessarily in a bad way, but more so that I don't really want to set my expectations for a certain way Metroid used to play and then start to be really harsh to this one because it's more modernized and maybe I don't like maybe the controls don't feel as tight. Maybe something feels like maybe they altered something in the story to make this story work, but like I, wouldn't notice that normally, but would if I wouldn't replay the previous 4, which I'm okay after 20 years if they had to alter the story to make Dread work. That's fine with me. But it's also like, but hey, like, if you get the story set up here and then you go into it and suddenly they changed a fundamental aspect, it might make me mad. Whereas now it's like, you know what? The last Metroid game I played was Other M. I enjoyed it for what it was. And now I'll play this one. I don't really have an inkling to go back and replay. I'm also, this is just a caveat for me as a gamer. I don't replay games very often. Old games especially. That's why like all the Switch Online service stuff sounds great, and I'll probably end up getting the expansion pack for at least the first year. But how much am I really going to be playing any of those games? Maybe on live stream because they have some online play, but besides that, I don't really replay my old games. I think there's just so many new experiences coming out that I want to play that I don't ever get that itch to, let me go back and play the old one. Like right now, I want to play Metroid Dread. That's a new one coming out. Big itch to play that one. Way bigger itch than playing the old ones. But I also understand the thought process of, yeah, we haven't had this in 20 years. I want to replay the old ones and get all caught up and good to go. I mean, Return to Samus was a more recent remake. That's great. Go play that on 3DS. From the little bit I've touched of it, I never owned it because I played the original and didn't really feel the need to. Which maybe I should, because that one's probably going to be more similar in gameplay to this one. I don't know. Like, I just don't get that urge to play old games when new ones are coming. Like after this, the next Metroid game, Metroid Prime 4. Then again, if that Prime 1 remake's a real thing, remakes are a different story. You remake games, I will tend to at least buy them and try them out. But as an example, like Skyward Sword HD came. Love Skyward Sword. It's in my top 5 Zelda games of all time. Maybe got through the first dungeon and stopped. Because there's other new games that I don't know what's going to happen out that I want to play. So, yeah, that's just how I am. And plus now as an adult and as a parent, I have to divvy up my gaming time in a way that's going to be most satisfactory to me because I don't have 60 hours a week anymore to game. Maybe I will someday if YouTube ever becomes like this full-time thing and I'm not doing college or anything else. And I just, hey, I'm making enough money here to support my family. Sweet. Then it becomes part of my job to play games more often. Which that'd be great. You guys can help me out here by just subscribing to the channel. But what about you guys? Like, do you guys... Eric, have you ever played a Metroid game? I'm not sure if you have.
The only Metroid game I played is Super Smash Brothers. Oh wait.
Oh. I was gonna say I don't think you've ever.
No, I don't think I've played a Metroid.
Game.
It's not that I'm against it. It's just
never
never
popped into your system randomly.
No.
But I know obviously, Dave, you're a big Metroid guy.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I wanted you on this week, it was either gonna be this week or next week. One of these days that we had to get you on for Metroid. So like, are you playing new ones heading into Dread?
I'm taking a different approach. I've been playing a lot of Metroid for the past year already, so I'm not playing any Metroid games all the way through leading up to Dread because I want to feel more fresh. I just had a full playthrough of Super Metroid on my channel last year. Metroid Prime also. I've played all the other games before many times. But what I did do is I played a new Metroidvania game on PS5, the Fist, Forge and Shadow Torch game, which is a really good Metroidvania game. I kind of want to get a feel of what new Metroidvania feels like these days when this brand new Metroid game comes out. So I played that and I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to Metroid Dread, and then it looks really, really good. I saw the preview for it the last couple of days. I think Game is Playing had one, and a couple other sites, Nintendo Life. It looks really, really fun and really, really fast. What I like about those Metroidvania games, guys, is how fast they are. The faster it is, the better for me. Like if it's a really slow and you're always being stopped kind of game, I don't like it as much as from what I found out. But if you have a dash maneuver, fast way to travel through the like zigzag up up the platforms in those games, that's like fantastic. That's the kind of Metroidvania I like, and that's what it looks like. Metroid Dread's going to be like. It has very, very refined controls. It looks like very fast. Looks great. The whole design, the levels look great, and so I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I'm not playing any more like Metroid like side-scrolling games right now. I'm waiting for that game, and then I'm going to dive deep into that and play the whole thing. But yeah, it just looks really good. But I had a question online on Twitter. I was asking, and I got no response. But because I don't know if anyone knows, but I asked if you could change the controls or not from the D-pad from the analog stick. Because I noticed in the previews they were using the analog stick to control Samus for side scrolling, and I prefer using the D-pad because I feel more exact control for certain like jumps and movements when I use a D-pad because I'm old school,
Especially in side
So I'm not sure how the controls are going to be, but obviously they look pretty smooth. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, I'm not really that concerned about the controls. I would assume they're going to give you the control options because Nintendo does typically like to give you a little bit of options with their games. Not always. Sometimes they're a bit stubborn. This is the way we designed it. This is the way you're going to play it. Remember Skyward Sword was impossible to do a button stick control, and then turned out, no, it's totally possible, and people have been doing it with emulators forever. So I would presume, though, for a game like this, that they're going to offer either control scheme. They're obviously going to push the analog stick because technically, if you own a Switch, you don't have a D-pad per se, unless you have an accessory.
Pro controller, yeah.
So, like, it's one of those, you have to have a Pro Controller or something else, or modify your Joy-Con, and it's one of those, yeah, there is technically the split-button D-pad, but everyone knows that's not really a D-pad, and it lacks some of the thumb roll ability to get some of that accuracy. It is accurate, but it is like pressing buttons because that's what they are. So that's probably.
I just remember Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, where they forced the. You couldn't use. I don't think you could use a classic controller in that game, which I was like, man, I wish I could use the classic controller, and there was no option to. So.
Yeah. And I think with all the different official controllers they have for this thing, that they're probably going to allow the D-pad. But again, we'll see. I have asked a couple people that I know have played it. They got invited to the Nintendo event, the 90-minute preview they got to do, and of course, all of them said we never even thought to try. And I'm like, it's one of those things that's like, look, personally, if I go to an event like that, if Nintendo invites me, which they never will. You want to know why we have a massive Switch OLED video going up on Friday, guys? Because we ain't under no NDAs from Nintendo. Now, they can still take out the video if they want, but technically, I didn't agree to anything. But when you go to these events, like, why did all these people that officially played Metroid Dread weren't able to, like, show you comparisons with this Switch? Because Nintendo said no. I ain't got to worry about that. But here's the thing. If I was invited to that event, because plenty of YouTubers smaller than me were. So people were like, how come this one YouTuber, like 10,000 people got invited and you didn't? Well, one, you see this? That's called a shot.
You're a good example to children.
Nintendo ain't feeling the shots on stream. That's number one. Number two, Nintendo is very choosy with their ambassador program with YouTubers that are pretty much always going to say positive things. They will never officially say that's how they choose their ambassadors. You'll notice something about every single Nintendo Switch ambassador. Rarely are they critical of Nintendo's offerings. I could argue there's people out there that are a bit more aggressive than me towards their own fans. Player Essence is an example, not to put him on the spot, but he's a Nintendo ambassador, and I can't remember the last time he was super negative about a Nintendo game. It also could be that he just chooses not to cover the games he doesn't like. That could be a choice that he makes as well, but that conveniently fits within Nintendo's bubble of, you're going to treat us nicely. That being said, by the way, it's not an official requirement of the ambassador program. This is just my presumption. I used to get review copies from Nintendo back when I worked at Zelda Informer, so I kind of know how the process works for all this stuff. But when they got invited to that event, my thought, if I would have bought there, is everybody here is going to be, okay, let's play Metroid. Let's get as far into this game as we can in 90 minutes. Get as much footage as we can. They have limits on how much footage they're supposed to show. There's certain things they weren't. Giant Bomb actually got in trouble because they showed their entire hour-and-a-half gameplay session, and they weren't supposed to, and there were things they weren't supposed to show, and Nintendo struck down their videos and actually took out their channel for like a day.
Ooh, struck down.
Yeah, the Giant Bomb made a big oopsie. I'm pretty sure they smoothed things over behind the scenes, but obviously there was a miscommunication with the NDA they signed, where they didn't understand they couldn't show everything. At least not yet. There was probably a certain date that they could show some of that footage. I know because I've had Nintendo NDA, so there's usually like 30-second clips you can use here and there. Like if you watch Nintendo Life's video where he talks about his, you'll notice there's not a single clip of Metroid Dread in there that lasts longer than 30 seconds. That's because of the NDA. You can only show like 30-second clips like 5 times for 2.5 minutes worth of footage. So like that's, I know because I've had to deal with these NDAs before. But the thing is, I would have been at that event and gone, look, everyone's going to be like, let me get all the impressions of the OLED and the bright screen and what I think about that, and obviously get as far into this Metroid game as I can so I can give in-depth thoughts on Metroid. Valuable things. And obviously, I would have tried to make some progress in the game. Right. But my first thing would have been like, you know what no one here is going to bother to do? Go into the settings menu and see what the hell you can do in this game. Can I change my button mapping? Can I use the
totally
D-pad?
agree.
These are things that nobody's checking because they're just trying to get as far into the game as they can. And I'm like, but that's what everybody's doing. Who else is going into the menus and figuring this stuff out? We do. We do at E3. We got in trouble at E3
yes, we did.
for Pokemon Let's Go. We discovered, oh, hey, look, we can go to the menu. And they're like, whoa, what are you doing? I'm like, and we got that on footage. And you weren't supposed to be recording. So it's like, oopsies. But that's what I want to do. I'm not under any NDA with any of this stuff. You want to yell at me and kick me out, that's fine. But I'm not. Now, obviously, when I'm there, you are. And if they said you can't go into the settings menu, that's fine. But I at least would have said, but I did ask, can you use the D-pad? And
wait, so no, or if they said you're not a Nintendo ambassador, but how'd you get the OLED early?
Oh,
maybe I'm.
Should we go into that story? We'll go into that story. We'll go into Switch OLED here after this, and I'll tell people how the OLED early thing happened. Because by the way, ambassadors aren't getting the OLED early. Just to clarify.
Oh, it's one of those things.
But we'll get into that in a bit because
So Nintendo really doesn't like
I
you. I
don't
see.
actually. I can literally say that I know how everybody right now, like anyone, like Kevin, Kenson or Jensen or whatever, how he has his, how the one chick that had two of them and then appeared on Austin Evans' video today. I know how they got theirs because they got it the same way I did. Zach from Switchforce did a video today. I know how he got his. He actually got his from the same people I did. So I'll explain this in a little bit. People are going to think this is some big industry insider secret. It's really not. It's more of a questionably gray area because we don't actually know where these damn things came from. We don't. The person we got them from obviously knows how they're getting their hands on it. We don't know. So I will get into that. But we'll talk about that after we finish talking about at least our hype for Dread here, because we talk about, our you talk about like the tight controls and how it looked, and hopefully having control options, which I assume are there, but we'll see. Because again, Nintendo sometimes weirdly doesn't give those options. Sometimes they'll update the games later with them, but because accessibility is a thing. There's some people that literally just, it hurts to use thumbsticks, so they'd rather like use their palm and use a D-pad and stuff. So
Exactly.
so there's a whole accessibility thing, and that's one thing I've always given credit to Microsoft for. They might not have always had the best exclusive games over the last several many years, but that controller they built for accessibility that works on PC, it pretty much works on everything. That was an amazing thing that they did. Yeah, it's stupidly expensive to get all the accessories. Welcome to being disabled. It's stupidly expensive to get anything you actually need to take care of yourself when you're disabled.
Which sucks.
I know. I worked in the healthcare industry. My Yulia does right now. My fiance, she does in-home care, and she deals with all this stuff. And if a wheelchair breaks, oh my god, it's like hell to get a new one. So like, I think that Nintendo will probably give those options eventually. But beyond those options, just Metroid Dread in general, like when it dropped at E3 and it said Metroid 5, I was like, all right. This was rumored technically beforehand. They said we were going to get Metroid 5 at E3, and I was like, okay, this is it. Okay, cool. We're going side-scrolling. This actually looks really damn good. I'm like, but the last time we heard about Metroid 5, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, it used to be Metroid Dread, but that thing was canceled, so whatever, I'm cool, reboot and everything. And all of a sudden, they dropped that Dread title, and I'm like, no.
I know.
Because they didn't have to keep, like, the Dread title could literally just be nostalgic. It might not actually have anything to do with the old canceled game. None of that could be even used here. None of the ideas from that might even be not even used here. Don't know, because it's not here yet. But what we do know is that they obviously knew that would be a good callback to hardcore Metroid fans that remember the hype that was driving behind Dread before that had the chain yanked from it. And then, obviously, for me, as someone who has loved and appreciated Metroid for so long, I've even literally founded a Metroid wiki that I sold off to someone who had more time to maintain it than I did. MetroidWiki.org, I founded that. You'll still see me. I think my name's on a whole bunch of crap there. I made a lot of the articles there. The thing is, I just want this game to sell well.
Right.
That's what I already know it's going to be really damn good. I don't know how good, but just from what we've seen, I already can tell you, and based on Samus Returns and based on the main development studio behind it, it's going to be a really good play. Don't know if it'll be long enough. Don't know if I'm going to be disappointed with the boss fights or the story or whatever. But just gameplay-wise, I can already tell you it's going to be enjoyable for large parts of me playing it. So I just want it to sell well because I'm tired of Metroid being like this less than Kirby game.
Mm-hmm.
It's been treated with more care than Kirby. Kirby gets yearly releases. Finally, have our first ever 3D Kirby. We got our first 3D Metroid way long ago on the GameCube. But like, while it gets treated with more care, it also has never had the sales to justify that. Like, Metroid Prime, officially has sold just under 3 million, the very first one, and that's the best-selling Metroid of all time. Most Metroid games don't even top 1.5 million. It's never really gotten the appreciation that you start hearing things like, oh, Hollow Knight. How'd Hollow Knight sell? Oh, yeah, 7 million. Oh, that's way more than any Metroid game's ever sold. It's like these games that are inspired by the genre that Metroid and Castlevania founded are just blowing up, and like Metroid's never gotten that kind of love, despite, in my opinion, being just as good as these games that are inspired by them.
Right.
So I just want it to sell well. Plus, I want to see RGT85 have to play Balan Wonderland because it broke the record for Metroid sales. But
I think he did that on
peeve.
purpose because him saying that it pretty much gave the game more pub.
Yeah.
So
I
he wants it to
I
sell
always
well.
wondered if he did it on purpose. He's like, yeah,
He
because
did.
he. By the way, guys, RGT85 actually likes Metroid, so he wants it to sell well. He keeps confidently saying it won't, and I guess history's
He's dying
on
to
his
play
side.
Balan Wonderland, though. Honestly, he wants to play it. You know it.
He just really wants to play it. He loves it. He's a secret hardcore fan of that game. He's already 100%ed it.
Probably. Yeah. He'll turn it on and be like, see, I already beat the game, guys.
Yeah, I already did it. Already did. See, look
Tricks
at this.
on you.
Got the perfect ending. Okay.
No, but I was talking about this in my video yesterday, is that Metroid Dread is connected to the future success of Metroid Prime 4. It's directly connected to that game's success, because if this game sells really well to a huge audience of the Switch, they're 10 times more likely to buy a brand new Metroid Prime game than what they would probably not be if they don't even know what Metroid is. Like, Nintendo has gone out of their way to reintroduce what Metroid even is to people. People don't even know what this series is. They never played the Metroid before. They have no idea. So
What, they didn't play Prime Hunters?
they're but Hunters?
Yeah.
No, not that. No, no. But that's a pretty fun game, though. But like, basically,
it's actually
they're
a lot better than people think it is. It's just the rage around Metroid at the time.
They're reintroducing the series to players, and they're doing a great job of it. Some people complain about spoilers and everything like that, but that's the hardcore fans. The actual gamers who've never played the series before, they want to see why they should buy this game.
Yeah,
So Nintendo's showing them. They're showing them why. They're not spoiling the story or anything like that, so it's fine. But also, like, even though it's a side-scrolling game, it's still going to help sales of Metroid Prime 4 and Metroid Prime Trilogy when they re-release that, because it's all about brand name recognition. You put Mario on something, it sells, right? It doesn't matter if he's 2D or if he's 3D. He sells because he's Mario. Samus doesn't. There's like, we don't know about this Samus. Like, we don't know about her. But you put him on Metroid Dread to a 90 million plus install base, and it sells maybe 5 million copies. I think it'll sell up to 5 million, in my opinion. People are going to be way more in tune to see what's next for Metroid, and they'll buy it.
So we had a few super chats come in. Turbo Labs with $1.99 says, "Can I do a super chat dance or at least some music?" I'm not sure in the music stuff right now because while voice mod is working, for some reason my clean audio button is not. So if I switch to like some sort of dancing music and stuff like that, I might not be able to switch back. So we're not going to do that today. I can give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I'm going to do a few shots in your guys' honor. Thank you so much. I forgot I was doing shots for super chats today. I don't know how I forget that, but and then Still Alive did $2 said, "What's your overall favorite ability from a Metroid game?" Oh, that's a tough one.
Mine's is the screw attack.
Screw attack.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure if I have a favorite. What I find interesting about the new about Dread itself is some of the weapon abilities and upgrades that we see. It kind of gives me like Mega Man vibes a little bit. And maybe they got some inspiration from that. I don't know, because Mega Man's another obviously arm cannon person. So yeah, I'm not gonna say that I have a favorite, and you obviously don't, because you don't play Metroid.
No. I mean, if I had to pick one from Smash, it'd be kind of like the where she rolls up into a ball and drops the bomb.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of cool.
Sure. That is an ability. That is an
Iconic.
ability. Yep. All right. Taker610 also mentioned that Dave was a tad loud. I turned him down. We're all good.
But then the next comment right after, no, it's not.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, he technically was a smidge louder than us. It wasn't. I didn't think it was that bad. But
Right.
Whatever. Some people are wearing headphones when
happens.
they listen, and I'm sure they're more sensitive to it than I am listening through non-headphones, obviously. But cheers to everyone. Thank you guys so much. I'll probably pour another one for you guys. There's been a number of super chats.
What you drinking?
Yep, having some drinks. It's just some wine.
Yeah.
Not that big a deal. Arbor Mist. All right. You guys have anything else you want to add about Metroid Dread? Because, I mean, that's Nintendo's big, potentially not maybe their most important game this holiday, because you could argue, obviously, Shin Megami Tensei 5 from a third-party perspective, and Mario Party is probably going to be their best seller. I would assume that's. I think that one's going to get at least 10 million in its lifetime, if not more. Super Mario Party obviously did 15. So, but this might be their most important for the core audience. And I think this is maybe a unique opportunity to expand Metroid's fan base before Prime 4 comes out. Because I think Prime 4 is going to be like maybe the most expensive game Nintendo's ever made. And they want to know there's going to be an audience to buy it. And I feel like that partially might be why Dread's coming as well, to see, can we expand that audience before Prime 4? Because Nintendo might be sinking 100, 200, 300 million into Prime 4. And if they only going to sell 1 million units, that ain't going to fly with Nintendo. They will just not make Metroid games anymore. So,
yeah,
they're also flirting with some 3D perspective stuff in Dread as well. I mentioned also in my last video that wouldn't it be cool, since Mario transitioned to 3D, third-person 3D, I think it'd be cool if they transitioned Samus to third-person 3D as well for mainline Metroid. You could easily do a third-person perspective mainline Metroid game with the tools they have of today. It doesn't always have to be side-scrolling. Not that I don't like side-scrolling, I love it, but it worked really well for Metroid. It worked great for Zelda. Donkey Kong's done it. It's gone back and forth. So it would be really cool if Retro Studios even could make a mainline Metroid game and not just focus on the side series, which is Metroid Prime. Even though Metroid Prime is like my favorite, it's still technically a side story.
Yeah.
To the main line.
Like Metroid Dread is the capper to the main story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can argue after Dread, well, the only current story going on is the Prime one. So then that would become the new main story, I guess, the least follow from now. And then see what happens from there. Because there'll be a new story that'll spurn off. I'm not going to get into spoiler territory because I know a lot of people that play Dread have never played any of the prior ones. So I don't even want to mention some of the story elements there. You'll get recapped at the beginning to know at least what I think is ending here with Metroid. Like a certain story arc that is going to feel very weird that this is ending, and yet the series is going to continue. Just based on the name of the series. I don't want to go too deep into it, but
I have an idea what they're going to do, though, knowing what happened in Fusion. Yeah, I have an idea of what they're probably going to do with it, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that wraps up. All right, so that's next week of Drag. I guess we'll just go right into OLED since that comes next week as well, and then we'll maybe end with the Nintendo Direct stuff because obviously at this point a lot of people have seen reactions and conversations on that, but hey, I haven't really had one yet, so I did my initial reaction. That was about it. So, Switch OLED comes next week, guys. Kind of a sort of a big deal. Hey, we had a new member or a renewal of a membership. Renewal of a membership by Amor12321_. Thank you so much, man.
Nice.
He's a member of the board of directors of Nintendo Prime at the champion rank. He says my Switch SD card is corrupted.
Ouch.
500 gigabytes.
Ouch.
So that sucks, especially if it was full because you got to reinstall all those games. Good news is as long as you have like cloud saves, you should be fine except for Splatoon. Sorry about that. And like any Pokemon game, I guess.
Yeah.
But like you should be mostly fine. It just sucks to get to reinstall everything.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that like last week where I got corrupted.
With that issue, I don't know what that guy is doing with his Switch, but I've noticed that people have issues with that when they're hacking their Switch and like inserting and taking out the SD card with their PC and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but like more issues will happen if you are trying to hack your Switch.
Yeah. Also, if you're someone that uses multiple SD cards with the Switch, which it's actually not that uncommon. I know many people who have just got a bunch of smaller ones and they just swap them in and out for what they want to play. I found out that the more you do that, the more likely it is to get corrupted. Maybe it's just because you're taking in and out. I have no idea. In theory, shouldn't be that way, but this is kind of the downfall of micro SD cards. They're not always the most secure of things. But thankfully, because Nintendo does have cloud backup saves, as long as you've been taking advantage of that, which you just basically turn it on and it automatically does it for you, you should be able to get all your save data back, minus things like very select games like Splatoon 2. Thankfully, Splatoon 3 is coming, so maybe you don't care as much about your Splatoon 2 data anymore if you did lose that. And sometimes that Splatoon 2 data will be stored locally on the internal storage anyways, and it's just the game files that were on your SD card. So there's a chance you might be fine anyways. Nintendo does try to store most of the save files on the local memory as they can. Probably specifically because this could happen. But obviously, if you have a ton of games, they might not be able to get all your save data on the local memory. Maybe on Switch OLED you could. But speaking of that Switch OLED, yeah, we're giving away one on Friday. I'm sure you guys have heard by now. I say it in like every video, except for the last video I made today about Switch Pro, because it kind of felt weird to say, hey, we're giving away a Switch OLED. By the way, let's talk about Switch Pro.
Yeah.
Felt a little weird, so I just kind of left that out and just left it in the comments. But Switch OLED comes next week, and yes, it is true. Tomorrow by 10:30 in the morning, according to UPS, I will have a Switch OLED in studio, and literally I already have things set up. It's insane, the videos that I have planned for this thing. I got like 5 of them up on the whiteboard right now. The very first one's the big one, the ultimate comparison. We'll be comparing to this, the Switch Lite. We'll be taking everything apart. We'll take the docks apart. Nobody's done that yet. We'll be taking apart both the old dock and the new dock. I'll be doing internet speed test with a USB 3.0 dongle with the old dock compared to the new dock. Because believe it or not, I don't know if you guys know this, there is a speed test in the Nintendo Switch OS system. Thank you, Nintendo. This actually gives me an unbiased way to compare it instead of just connecting to games online and seeing if the connection's better, which can fluctuate based on whatever the hell my ISP is doing. Right. I can literally at home test the connection without even using the internet. I could just use my local network and have it draw off my network. So, yeah, I can get an unbiased measurement there. I can't necessarily get an unbiased, like, oh, play Control, play one of these streaming games. That's fine, but I might not necessarily notice a difference because there could be fluctuations with my ISP that affect things. Right. And it might not be something that's going to affect a game like that. But maybe it could affect something in the future, like if there is something in the dock that potentially could allow for some sort of upscaling in the future that isn't possible on the current. Again, we don't know, but for some reason there could be a firmware update on that dock, and nobody knows why that can be updated and the other one can't. Why do we even need to update what's essentially a dongle to split your signals out and charge your Switch? Why do we need it? And there's no other dongle I've ever bought in my life for any device, any computer device that I've ever had to update. But this one does. So why? Is there something in there they're just kind of like Bluetooth with the Switch? Yep. Is there something in there they're just choosing not to use right now, but is more of a future-proof dock, as it were? Something for a feature down the line that they don't want to advertise or enable right now because it might make people that own this not very happy. Such as, even if, forget about 4K in terms of playing games at 4K, what if it's as simple as, yeah, with this, you can stream games in 4K. Can't do that with the original dock. Game streaming is a thing on Switch. So we'll have to wait and see. By the way, I don't even know if the HDMI port on the thing is HDMI 2.1. I'll be able to tell when I plug it into my TV. It'll spit out whatever signal it's getting to me. So I'll be able to tell you if it is actually a better signal, because the current dock's 1.4. If this is 2.1, that's also kind of a big...
I think they listed the specs though on their site. I don't think it's any different, but
I don't think it is either on their site. But what it says on their site versus reality, again, it's one of those manufacturers tell you one thing, there's shit manufacturers say, and then there's what reality is. We'll see. We'll see what it is.
We can output in 8K.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, technically they can output in 8K. I'm still curious for like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. How? Okay, so I think it was in the PlayStation 5 digital manual that said it could output at 8K 60. And I sat there, and I'm looking over the HDMI 2.1 spec, which is what it uses, and I'm sitting there like, bullshit. The 2.1 HDMI can't do 8K 60. Bullshit. But they put it in there. It's a nice marketing term. Can it do 8K? Yes. But it's marketing. One, how many of you guys even own an 8K TV or monitor anyways? They're stupidly expensive. And by the way, this isn't me trying to knock those other systems. This is just me speaking truth. As a PC gamer, I already fundamentally know those systems don't really even have the specs to do native 4K at 60 FPS in modern AAA games. They just don't.
4K is still a buzzword even today.
Absolutely. Upscaled and using the new, stuff that AMD has out there that's their version of DLSS, absolutely. Using checkerboard rendering, absolutely. Games look phenomenal on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Not saying they don't. I'm just saying that even the 4K is kind of with an asterisk. Just the way it is. And PC gamers know this. I'm sorry, when you want to have playable 60 FPS with good settings, on a computer and you need like a 3080, 3080 Ti, 3090, these are $1,000 GPUs, $1,000+ GPUs, and you're telling me a $500 console can do that? It can't. The specs don't even line up. It can't do it. But that doesn't mean they're not phenomenal, by the way. Mm-hmm. Just pointing out that there's always that marketing snafu. Like if Nintendo was pushing 4K, as we talked earlier with the Pro, it's still more of a marketing thing. Even with a upgraded Switch, you're not getting true 4K. It's an upscale. It's just the ability for the TV to recognize this as a 4K signal doesn't necessarily mean the picture's actually 4K.
Basically, like with the Steam Deck, same thing. It can do 4K, but it's gonna be like using AMD's like FSR stuff.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe the FSR is great. I haven't done a lot of testing. I do have a 6700 XT that I can't wait for the full PC support to come out so I can test that out a little bit. I'd rather have the 6800, but beggars can't be choosers today in the GPU market. So the Switch OLED comes next week, and as I said, I'll have one in the studio. Got a bunch of videos planned. Gonna have a lot of fun with that. Hopefully not break it along the way. Someone wants me to do a burn-in test. I'll tell you this about doing burn-in. It's going to be impossible from now, at least it should be, unless the panel's that shit. It should be impossible for me to create permanent burn-in between now and launch. Should be impossible. I could put it in the worst case scenario on max brightness with a certain, even just like the home menu, and just make sure the home menu never closes, which is kind of hard to do on Switch because it has an automatic sleep function. You can turn it off, but it's really hard because you don't have to be like in a game. Literally, the easiest way to burn in is something that's more static, like the home menu. That would be like one of the best ways to create burn-in. The thing is burn-in on modern OLEDs today takes thousands of hours for it to become permanent. You can get temporary pretty quick. You can leave it on that home menu, don't touch it for like 6 hours, come back, turn it off, and you'll see a little burn-in on the screen. But that goes away after a few minutes. That's not the burn-in that you need to worry about. It's the long-haul burn-in. And the thing is, modern OLEDs have gotten so good that it's not really even something you have to worry about unless you're just never going to turn off your Switch. So I'm not sure that I can even purposely produce permanent burn-in. But I can show you guys what temporary burn-in is like and how long it takes to experience it and what you have to do to experience it. Because I'll let you guys know, in general, during normal gameplay, it's probably not going to happen. It's just, if you're just picking up your Switch or playing games, even if you play for like 12 hours straight, you probably still won't get it unless you're on a static menu for 12 hours. There are certain UI elements, as an example, that if nothing ever changes with them, all right, maybe. But it'll go away by the time you start your Switch up again, so I wouldn't really worry about it. Burn-in was more of an issue with OLED at the very beginning of the OLED technology. But even now, max brightness is not what you want to play at, etc. with OLED in general, but I don't think the max nits on this, I don't think are going to be that big a deal. Although, interestingly enough, OLED panels are usually less bright than LCD because of burn-in, as an example, and you want the deeper blacks, and so you just have a less bright screen. The thing is, all the comparisons have had the screen showing brighter than the current Switch.
Right.
Just so people are aware, well, LCD could easily be way brighter. I have a monitor coming that's got like 2200 nits. Like it's mini LED LCD crap. So like amazing brightness. The thing is, this has been measured by people with the proper tools, and it's like between 280 and 340 nits. Some of the screens are slightly brighter to 340. Most are around 300. That's actually extremely low for an LCD. Like, Nintendo cheaped out like mofos on the original Switch screen. So I would not be shocked to see the OLED panel is actually technically brighter. Not just more vivid colors, like actually brighter, because most OLED screens are between 400 to 600 nits. So it's probably going to be bright. It's one of those weird situations where moving to an OLED that's actually going to give you a brighter picture too. Potentially. There's other things people I want to know about power draw comparisons. I will not be doing the battery life and power draw comparison in the ultimate comparison video, guys, because honestly, I don't think it's fair to compare a brand new system to dated systems that have had degradation on the batteries. while I still think the battery life on these are fine, they're not going to be running the same as they would out the box. So I don't know that it'd be a fair comp to compare this and my current Switch Lite, unless I'm willing to buy all new Switches, which I'm not. So to actually do that kind of comparison, that's fair. Because yeah, Switch OLED is probably going to be better, but these also have degradation.
Is that the launch model?
This one is not.
From
This is the version
2017?
This is version 2.
Oh, okay.
He's got the launch model though.
I do.
But it's just not a comparison I think is worthwhile. I think what is worthwhile is doing a separate video and seeing if it lines up with Nintendo's claimed numbers. And what the worst case scenario is if you are someone, because there are a lot of people that prefer to play on max brightness all the time. So that is something to actually compare what it really is like in a more intense gaming situation with a game, I don't know, like Doom Eternal or something that pushes the hardware pretty hard. And could lead to it dying quicker or whatever. And then obviously, throw an indie game on it. Those usually last 4 or 5 hours on a normal Switch. So we'll have to wait and see what it does with OLED. But I'm just going to compare it to what Nintendo rates it. And I could throw up what they rate the other ones at as well. The thing is, I have done an extensive test on the launch model, the 2017 Switch, when I was doing a battery bank comparison way back when. Maybe I could dig up some of my footage from that because that was back when the Switch was new. And there was that whole battery bank can brick your stuff. And I did an extensive battery test back then with a bank, without a bank. And so I technically have all the numbers somewhere before the battery degradation happened. But that's also not before version 2 happened with a chip that was slightly less power draw. So things, are going to vary. There's too many variations, I guess, to do a direct power draw comparison. So I will do a video on the Switch OLED's power draw. It'll be mostly just about the OLED itself instead of comparing it, because it's a hard thing to compare unless, again, someone out there, like maybe Gamers Nexus or something, will end up buying brand new systems to do a proper battery comparison. But honestly, if the battery's the same, which it looks like it probably is, then I guess the only difference is, does the new panel draw more power than the old panel?
Yeah, Steve from Gamers Nexus, he's been around the bend for all these channels lately doing this stuff. It's been kind of interesting.
So, so we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe he ends up reaching out to me after my video on Friday, because I got some interesting stuff that I might even ask him to clarify in his video.
Bring him on the podcast.
Because he's going to be focused so much on thermals, and there's certain things, though, that only you might be able to figure out compared to other content creators out there. I don't have all of the right tools, as an example. Some people do want to know what kind of OLED panel it is. I got to see how difficult it is to get down to where I could see the model number and look it up. Because you'll have to take everything out, I'm presuming, to see the model number. Because Nintendo doesn't have it listed on their website, so we're not even sure what kind of OLED panel it is.
Yeah, you got to take the entire screen off, and there should be a tag where it connects at the bottom underneath of what model number.
So I'm going to have
to
fully disassemble it, which, that's fine. I plan to take the thing apart anyway, so why not just go all the way?
Do it, man.
I got new thermal paste and everything coming. I'll be able to put it together just fine. As I said, no liquid metal this time, but maybe someday I get crazy enough to see, hey, let's just, I told you why I shouldn't do it, so let's just do it to see what happens. And it lights on fire in my hand.
Yeah, right.
Have lots of fun with
Spontaneous
that.
combustion.
Combustion. Oh, shit. Some of it leaked out and got right into the battery leads. Perfect.
Cool.
Perfect. That's what we want. Shorts everywhere. Lots of flames. Kind of like when Beat 'em Ups was trying to fix his and he couldn't figure out how to get the battery out. And then he decided to use metal tweezers and actually poked a hole in the battery and almost started a fire.
Didn't he cut himself in that too?
I think so. It's I don't know why he was having such a hard time removing that battery. I've removed Switch batteries. It shouldn't have been that difficult. Though I will say that some people argue that you should use a credit card because it is glued in. I can confirm credit cards are usually not good enough to get a Switch battery out. But you could definitely tell he's someone who's never opened up a Switch and knows anything about what he's doing. Just watched a quick online tutorial. Oh, it was super easy for them. I'm like, yeah, but I tried a plastic spudger. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. Here's the thing. If you're going to use metal, one, don't use something that's super pokey. And two, use something like a butter knife and put on a glove so you don't conduct electricity yourself. And then just stick it under and wedge it right up. That's what I had one battery that got really stuck a year ago. That's how I got it out. Just used a butter knife. You just got to get enough to get it underneath the battery. Make sure you're getting it underneath. Always stab down this way. and you should be fine getting it out. But obviously, he doesn't have the kind of experience taking apart electronics that I do. So
I mean, Firecracker might work, but
Firecracker probably would. Well, I don't even know. Might work at blowing up the battery.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, Switch OLED. So obviously, I have all these plans for it. What are your guys' thoughts on this platform? It's kind of the same platform, but then different. Like, worthwhile? Worth the money? Like, what are you guys thinking?
Me personally, I'm not going to pick it up. I've already got the current Switch, and I don't really play in purple mode that much. So it's like not really that big of a benefit for me. I'm already happy with the screen with the brightness as it is for the current Switch. If it was a more powerful Switch, I would buy it for sure, but it's not. So there's no really reason for me to pony up the extra money for that. But if you don't own a Switch, if you're a brand and if you want to jump in right now, that's probably a good thing to get. But again,
especially if you play handheld.
Yeah.
It's going to be the best handheld experience. Even like I know Lite was meant for handheld play. This, unless you really prefer it to be really tiny, like the Lite is, like this. I don't want to get too much into it, but the screen is nice. It's nice. I understand people are going to be, oh, they had OLED on the Vita. You're right, they did, but it technically wasn't HD. So this is a better screen than that, for what it's worth.
Yeah,
720p HD, but still. At that screen size, I actually find that's fine. Like a lot of times with smartphones, like we got 4K screens. I'm like, why?
Yeah, I think Vita was like a 5-inch screen, and it was 540p, which is a lot of what the Switch games run anyway in handheld mode. So it was pretty good. It was a pretty good screen.
Yeah. So like, all right. So I know neither of you are really interested in getting this. You're more waiting for, hey, if a Pro happens, get back to me then.
Yeah.
Is there any questions you guys have about the OLED model specifically? Especially since, hey, look, I'm going to have one tomorrow, so I'm going to get a chance to maybe answer all these questions. Like, is there anything specific
mainly,
that might be like, I'm curious?
I'm thinking about battery life. I want to see the comparison to see if it's actually as what they say.
Yeah. As I said, I got a video that I plan to do that because for those who know, battery life comps, they take a long time.
Yeah.
You know, benchmarking a PC is quicker than this because there's a whole bunch of different situations you got to test the battery under. You got to test the battery, you know, at obviously 100% down to nothing. Then, you know, you test various methods of recharge, and if that affects it, and then obviously test things like, hey, if you are playing it on a low percentage, like 1 or 2%, and you plug it into the wall, does it still take a charge fast enough to continue to charge the system while you're playing, or does it mostly just stay at the same percentage? That could be different. This Switch does, but it does charge pretty slow when you're playing with it plugged in. So,
yeah, I also want to know about loudness as well. I know Austin said it's like really, really quiet, but that he was only playing it in handheld mode. So I'm curious if it ramps up when you're playing in dock mode. You know what I mean?
And
like loud.
For those that know, that's exactly why I have Doom Eternal as one of my test games, because I'll be testing handheld and then in docked mode where things should be pushed even harder. And I will try to, well, especially if I notice, but even if I don't, I'm going to try to get a mic up close to be like, this is what it sounds like while I'm doing this, and I'll have a live recording or whatever it is, and you guys can see, you know, what it sounds like if it sounds any different. I know there's some people that are curious about the audio because Nintendo's the one that claims the audio is better. Curiously, they don't claim how it's better. So is it just louder speakers?
Is it just that we tell you it's better, so you're going to think it's better? The placebo effect?
Yeah. Or is it kind of like HD Rumble,
Probably.
where it actually is a better experience, but how many people are going to notice that the audio is actually better? Like, does it go from mono to stereo? Does it, I have no idea. Or maybe they're just talking about the Bluetooth audio quality is better. Maybe that's what they mean. Maybe they mean when you plug in a headphone, that audio is better. We have a better internals that manage that audio configuration to give you a better quality headphone experience. Again, Nintendo doesn't clarify. This is the only thing I'll say about OLED is they did more advertising for OLED today by trying to shoot down that Bloomberg article than they've actually done to advertise the Switch OLED. Since the Switch OLED was announced, Nintendo has not officially said a damn thing about it. It's
no
like,
commercials.
Here's everything, and we're done. See you on October 8th. And here I thought with this Metroid event, when I started seeing the Metroid footage pop up, I'm like, oh, they're all playing on OLEDs. Nintendo's gonna let the veil lift off the OLED and let people start talking. Nope, it was an event. These people don't even have the OLED back at the office. Nintendo's not even letting comparisons happen. What the hell is going on? Why is Nintendo trying to hide that this thing is coming out, and yet they're pushing it? But obviously, my whole thought process is that because OLED is basically replacing this, it's like a V3. Nintendo didn't really push the V2 Switch. They kind of mentioned it exists, and then that was it. Red box, done. They didn't really advertise it after that besides normal commercials. I think it's kind of the same thing with the OLED. They're going to slowly phase this out. They don't want to announce that yet because they're going to keep it going through the holidays. But I think they're going to slowly phase out the old Switch. And then, they don't feel like they need to advertise. I think it just being a Switch is enough.
Well, what notice about Nintendo is that they tend not to advertise things they don't feel needs advertising. Like, it won't make any difference to them in their bottom line, I don't think. And it costs them millions of dollars to advertise. So it's like if they think, well, it's like a small difference that will increase and doesn't equal the cost it takes to advertise, they just won't do it.
Yeah, well, what I find interesting about the OLED situation is, so obviously a bunch of us that have it early, and I'll get into how I got it early. A bunch of us that have it early are obviously about to do all this coverage of it. That's honestly going to do nothing but help Nintendo. Even if our overall impressions are we're not that impressed, it's at least going to show off the differences enough that somebody could look at it and be like, well, just because it wasn't impressive to you, I liked what I saw, I will pick it up. Because the people who aren't going to pick it up are just going to be looking for their justifications not to pick it up anyways. But it's the people that are on the fence that are going to watch these videos and make purchasing decisions. So I look at this as, obviously they're about to get a bunch of free advertising that way, that I don't understand why, if Nintendo themselves doesn't want to pay for advertising, why don't they just let their media partners do it for them for free? All they got to do is send them one and say, do what you want with it. It's the same Switch. What are you gonna NDA? Well, there's no extra feature that's not on the other Switch. So have at it to your videos. By the way, that very well might be a thing that happens next week. Very well, maybe they did send them out end of this week, and they'll be able to do that coverage next week. I have no idea. But it's almost like the fact that it was just this week. It was literally just this past weekend that they got to do that Metroid. That Metroid event was this past weekend. And it's like, literally as of this last weekend, they wouldn't even let them record comparisons to the current Switch for free advertising. And some people took this as a negative because Nintendo's like, oh yeah, we know it doesn't look that impressive compared to the new Switch. We don't want that out there. But the thing is, I already did a video on it, and yeah, it actually does look significantly better. Maybe not better enough that you want to spend $350 to get one if you already own a Switch, of course. Especially if you play dock mode. If Nintendo's not approving, I mean, no point if you play dock mode. If
Nintendo's not approving of all this stuff that you guys are doing, aren't you might get in trouble if you show this week or something?
So I already did like a pseudo unboxing showing video. The thing is, and I thought for sure Nintendo was gonna ding it. I was waiting all day. I even made a joke about it on Twitter when someone commented on something about my video once it started because my video got put on Kotaku and a whole bunch of other places.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, there's no way Nintendo hasn't seen it at this point. Somebody there. I'm about to get dinged. That video's going away. I might even get a copyright strike. And it is what it is. I decided, you know what? I'll take the risk just to see what happens. Because somebody's got to do it. And at the time, guys, that I put the video up, nobody else had a video up yet.
Right.
I even beat the coverage that I didn't even know was coming because I wasn't invited to the Metroid event.
I thought you guys sent it by Nintendo.
So like people thought that I knew, and I was trying to beat that coverage, and I'm like, I had no idea. I literally had no idea. This video was planned out and took all night to put together, and I had no idea all this other Metroid Dread coverage was about to drop. It was kind of I don't know if it was convenient or inconvenient time. I feel like it might have got more views if that coverage wasn't coming. But my thing is that I was waiting for Nintendo to ding it, waiting. It didn't happen. Austin Evans takes it apart today. Wait for his video to get dinged. Didn't happen. Kevin Kenson does his thing. Wait for him to get dinged. Doesn't happen. So it doesn't seem that Nintendo is caring about people that aren't under NDA doing whatever the hell they want with this system. Now, if they were obviously using a Metroid Dread ROM, which I'm sure is probably out there somewhere at this point from review copies, and, you know, that's a whole thing that maybe leaked. Yeah, they're going to care about that. But that's a game leak. This is technically a system leak that, like, I feel like if it was the Pro, they might be more...
yeah, if it was their next system, they'll be going nuts.
Or They just don't care. But then if they don't care, then why won't they let the media do it when they have access to it? It's a very weird situation where I expect to be dinged, but since it hasn't happened, we're clearly not going to be. And maybe Nintendo view it could have been one of those things that Nintendo didn't know that it was necessarily going to leak out early, and once it happened, they figured it's probably worse press to shut it down than it is to just let it be. That could be too, because remember, all these leaks happened this week after that Metroid event. If they had known this was going to happen, they might have let them do comparisons. But since they're like, you know what, it's bad pub if we shut it down now. Just let it be.
It's only a week before launch too, so
I mean, the only thing Nintendo's going to care about, where are these systems coming from? And they're going to want to track that down. They're not coming after the content creators because we don't. It's not like we just magically made things appear in front of us. Came from somewhere. That person that it's coming from, that's where Nintendo's going to want to track down and see how the hell this happened. So this is where I guess I could talk about how I got mine. We have a fan of the channel, and I talked about this in the unboxing video that him and I kind of collaborated on and did together, where he was basically on an app. I don't remember exactly which app it was, but it's one of those reseller apps out there. And on there, someone was advertising that they were selling Switch OLEDs. And he just thought, well, when you look at that, you go, well, okay, that's probably just selling a pre-order or something, right? Like, whatever. Scalpers are doing scalper things and selling pre-orders. Well, turns out that no, he actually had them on hand. And this is where he picked it up, and we did that video together. And he only had 2 at the time. The other one went to somewhere else. And then, I talked to this fan because we were collaborating, and I said, can I borrow? My initial plan was, hey, can I just borrow yours? I'll throw some money your way because obviously I'm benefiting from the videos. So throw, heck, maybe I pay for the damn thing for you and I just borrow it for the next week. That was kind of my thought process behind it, plus paying the crap load of shipping to get it next day shipped. And he was like, well, actually, I think he's got another one if you just want to buy it. And so I did. I won't tell you what I paid, but I did. And I can tell you right now, none of us on YouTubers that have it right now paid MSRP to have it right now. I'll just say that. We find value in being able to obviously do content with it before the big media can do
it was
their
going to be more in
coverage.
there. Yeah.
So it's more like an investment in the channel than anything else. So, by the way, I'm still doing my live stream of picking my retail one up from GameStop, which it'd be so awkward, you guys. Don't you already have it? Don't you? Technically, the one I'm having now isn't going to stay mine, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a private thing behind the scenes. But point is, we got this for the channel from this guy. And I asked, does this guy, is he stealing them? Kind of it
fell off the truck.
He's an employee at a local GameStop that has him in the back room or something. He's just
you don't want to be involved
because
in that.
that makes me feel like a dick.
Right.
I mean, one, if I don't buy it, somebody else will, but that's besides the point. It's kind of but you're also supporting stealing someone's pre-order because pre-orders are sold out in the U.S.
Oh, and how many times have you also gone to a store and the number of pre-orders that they sold, all of a sudden they don't have that number of systems.
But every single staff member has one.
Yeah.
Even though their pre-orders are supposed to be after the customers.
Right.
Anyways, I know this guy used to work at these stores.
Right.
My thing is, I don't actually know where this came from, and the guy won't tell anyone. All I know is it was a situation made available to me. It was quite expensive and made it happen because we want to create content for you guys and get ahead of everything before the big media kind of gets their mitts on everything. Because nothing against the big media, but I think there's just something unique that that certain YouTubers can bring because I feel like sometimes we're a bit closer to the average consumer than, say, people who are being paid salary to do what they do, and they might not even like the damn thing they're doing. As we found out with people like, Philip Mewson, when he got busted for all his plagiarism, well, a lot of things he was doing, he didn't even really enjoy doing, but it was his job. And it's but we do things because we enjoy doing it. So there's different perspectives we can bring. Do I expect IGN to hook up a bunch of probes to it like Gamers Nexus is going to do and test thermals? Hell no. Hell no. He might be the only channel that does it. And he's only able to do that now and probably have a video go out over the weekend or on Monday because of this early access. And as far as I'm aware, every single one of us that have one, which, by the way, it's not that many of us YouTubers, I think it's less than 10, got it from the same guy. So it's this one guy that's, I don't know if he owns a game store. I don't know what it is. He's obviously taken advantage and hasn't got slammed by Nintendo yet. So I would say, from my perspective, it's just more of a morally gray area. From his perspective, probably a legally red area where he's not supposed to be doing what he's doing. So it is what it is. I don't really know what else to say. And by the way, it's funny because all the other people that have it, like Zach from Switch Force, Austin Evans, who technically it wasn't his, it was the other YouTuber that he invited on that had it. And then he bought, I think, the white one off of her because she got 2 of them from this guy, and bought the white one off of her so he could send it to Gamers Nexus and they can collaborate on all this coverage. I sat there and I'm like, none of these people are going to explain how the hell they got it early. People are just going to assume Nintendo sent you a system because that's what they assume with me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to bullshit you guys. I paid for this system. I could have bought multiple Switches for what I paid for this system. Mm-hmm. And I did it for you guys. I probably won't even make back the money I spent, to be completely honest, on the videos I'm making. And I'm okay with that. I want to bring you guys content that you can't get anywhere else. And if I could do it in a way that, at least from my end, is not illegal. I didn't steal anything. Some guy had something and I bought it. I'm going to do my best to create good content for you. Because bottom line is, I don't get access to things like the Dread thing. A lot of my content is regurgitated. You guys know, you watch my videos. It's news. Regurgitated to you. You might have seen it already. Maybe you didn't. But it's just news for the most part. Occasional impressions on things. I don't get a unique opportunity to actually do big content like this that I want to do more often because I don't have the access. Mm-hmm. This was a unique opportunity where I could get access and do something that only a few others will get an opportunity to do. So, yeah, I took advantage of it. If you guys, hopefully, are not mad at me, I sincerely hope it isn't somebody's pre-order. I don't know if it wasn't me, would have been somebody else. I don't know how many units this guy still has. I don't know if he has more coming in. Don't know if he's been busted yet by Nintendo or the place he works, or if it is a place. Maybe he just owns the place. So to him, it's like whatever. He never even took pre-orders, and he's just selling out the stock that he was going to have day one. I have no idea. Because to Nintendo, a sale is a sale is a sale. They don't care as long as they get their money.
All right.
But yeah, so that's how I got it. It's somebody who I don't even know his name. But
probably better that way.
I mean, I know for a fact some people do know his name. I don't know his name, and I kind of want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I know who I got it from. I'm not going to mention the person who got it for me because I sent him all the funds to kind of sort it out and take care of it for me. To kind of put a little bit of separation between me and it, because it was always a little bit uncomfortable being like, where is this coming from? Mm-hmm. They're always that tinge of like, wow, where did this come from? Like, obviously, it's got to come from some retailer, right? Like, it's the only way I can think. The only other thing that I worry about is that if it didn't come from a retailer, and this is just one of those guys that like jacked a truck. By the way, that is like a thing that happens. It's not just Fast and Furious, guys. Trucks do get jacked in the United States. It is a real thing. So I always wonder, like, was it something like that? I don't know. All I know is it would have sold anyways. So why not to me? I don't like what I paid for it, but I also like that now, for the first time in a long time. Remember our E3 coverage and how you guys thought it was amazing and it was different? And I mean, man, what a different show compared to everyone else. How often do I get to do unique stuff like that? Not very often. This was a unique opportunity, so I took advantage. Maybe it works out for me, and maybe I get a whole bunch of views and my channel blows up to 100,000 subscribers. Maybe nothing happens and I get my 4 to 5K I usually get, and life moves on. Either way, I got to make some really damn cool content.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that in the chat or anything. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to sit here and like, I guarantee you none of the other people are going to be honest about how they got it. They're just going to kind of ignore those questions.
They just won't even answer.
Or they'll let you assume it was from Nintendo. Because like, oh, they're a big YouTuber. They're just, of course, it's from Nintendo.
Right.
Nintendo hasn't sent them out. So no, it's not. But
it was from Nintendo in a roundabout
technically, way. In a roundabout way, it was from Nintendo.
Yeah.
Wasn't maybe intended to be on your doorstep, but
yeah.
Right.
But so yeah. It is what it is, and you guys know that I do giveaways and all that stuff all the time anyway, so you guys know I'm more than willing to put my money where my mouth is on this channel to create something cool for you guys. So this was just an opportunity to be like, look, I could have put this money into giveaways, or I could actually make some really freaking sweet content that you're not going to see pretty much anywhere else. And I love that. I love technology. So being able to cover it before anyone else can really is... Like, when I saw Austin Evans today put up his video tearing it down, I was like, no! I knew someone was going to get to it before I got to it, because my video's going out on Friday for it. But I was like, oh, but he just took off the back and made some general comments and then sent it away. I'm like, okay, well, you didn't really... No. No, that's not really the comp I'm looking... I'm doing way beyond that.
He has a studio and a crew to help him, too, so...
Yeah, and I have myself. But it'll happen. It'll happen. I've been literally prepared. The thing is, everything I was doing, I'm so glad I did this. So I was preparing to make this video anyways. It was just going to be my launch one. And I was going to make, here's the thing. This ultimate comparison video, I was planning to make with the one I was going to get next Friday. I was going to work all weekend, get it out on Monday, and call it good. The thing is obviously now that I can do it earlier, that's cool. But also, I bought all this extra equipment and like setups off the ceiling and all this stuff to like do this video the way that I want. And it just so happened to all arrive like yesterday. And conveniently, I'm getting the thing tomorrow. So it's kind of like, see, I was already planning to do this anyway, guys. It just so happens I get to do it while it might be most beneficial for the channel. So
it was funny online. Guys were like, wow, Nintendo sent out OLEDs early?
Oh my god, I've had so many people be like, man, you're so lucky.
Really.
I'm like, I'm lucky because of me being a public persona, I became knowledgeable about stuff behind the scenes to get one. That is my luck. What I spent on it's not luck. And what I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have this tinge that's like, whatever. But you know what? I already spent the money. It's already going to be here tomorrow morning. It is what it is at this point. You wash your hands of it. You make the content. If Nintendo decides to ding me, they decide to ding me. And it is what it is. Then I'll just launch all my content when conveniently the NDA break. Oh, look, the NDA is done and they put out a video. Cool. I'm going to put out my video that day too. Because I'll just have my videos done ahead of time and just ready to go whenever Nintendo says it's okay. But considering they haven't dinged anybody else, I don't think they're going to... Nintendo is very... They won't ding you, based on my experience with them, unless it's game spoiler related. Like, if I had a ROM of Metroid Dread, and I played Metroid Dread, and I recorded it on the Switch OLED. Let's say that I hacked it or whatever. I'm playing it on the OLED. It's clearly an illegal copy, but I see how everyone else did it. I see the 30-second clips. I see the no more than 2 minutes. If I did the exact same thing they did, Nintendo wouldn't care I wasn't at the event. As long as I'm not showing footage they don't want people to see. So you can kind of fake your way into people thinking you had media access when really you broke the law and are doing things Nintendo doesn't want you to do. But the problem is people that do that will just say, screw it, and go full bore, and like, let me just get a walkthrough out, and then Nintendo's like,
they honk and wave as they fly by everybody.
No. People got to be smart about that. You know what you do if you're a walkthrough channel on YouTube that downloaded an illegal ROM or somehow got a copy that fell off the truck, like maybe I did with the Switch, I have no idea. What I'll say is, what you do is you get all your walkthrough content done, so you're the only channel on day one that has a 100% walkthrough for the game. Because as soon as midnight hits, you can dump all of it.
Yeah.
And you'll be the first channel to have all of it. If you try to do it before then, that's when Nintendo's like, nope, we know that you are not a media member. We know that you are doing something that's against NDA and obviously have an illegal copy of the game. So they'll just come after you.
Yeah.
Let me see. Sad Vasquez hits us with $2 super chat. Says, glad you got one, Nate. That's awesome. Was there a super chat
there
earlier?
was one earlier, yep.
Want to hit with that, Eric?
Yep, Turbo Blaz 1. Can you please do a video, one of you guys, on the Metroid side-scroller games regarding story? They need a rundown. They missed a lot. Line up a shot.
Well, the shot is already being lined up before he even said anything.
Yes. And that was a $5.
As for... I mean, I'm not going to be doing one. But that's because I obviously have access to something a lot of people don't. So you're going to see a lot of unique content over the next week that's based around that. I'm sorry if you get sick of Switch OLED by the time it comes out. But this is a unique opportunity for me, so I'm going to do everything I can. I'll still have my normal news content, I think, coming out too, unless I just get too overwhelmed with OLED stuff. Then I just have to focus on what I focus on. But yeah, I definitely won't be doing a story recap. I mean, David, do you plan to do a story recap potentially? For
no, just buy Metroid Dread. They'll do a recap for you at the beginning of the game.
You don't
I don't think there's
need
any.
to
There's
play
no
the
need
prior
to
games
for me, really.
play that. We talked about this earlier. Nintendo's already confirmed there's going to be a story recap at the beginning, so like you don't need to play the prior games to play Dread and know what's going on. So, hey J-Lo, thank you so much for becoming a member. You have joined the leader ranks. You are on the latest member of the board of directors of Nintendo Prime. Thank you so much, J-Lo. I think you used to be one, but then you fell off, and now you're back. Cool. Did we miss any other super chats to get to?
I don't think so. I think we're.
You think
caught
we're all caught up?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions from the chat quick before we kind of wrap this up over here? I'll give you guys one. If you have any questions about, by the way, if you have questions about the Switch OLED, I can't answer them yet. I will tell you Friday, we're having that live stream to give away a Switch OLED. I will definitely answer questions then. Anything that I can answer. There might be something that I just don't have answers to yet. Maybe something that I can answer live on stream. But a lot of the questions I hope will be answered in the ultimate comparison video. Everything except for the battery life thing, which I'm gonna do that separate because that's gonna take, might even take multiple days to do that. Because you never want to just do it one time. You always want to do you gotta do multiple battery drains and runs because you need to see what the average is. You can't just go, oh, the first time I drained it, yeah, okay, but what about the second and third?
Right.
You got to get an average in there, and if it's consistent, cool. If it's not, there's different reasons that the first drain might be quicker or take longer, and that could say things about the quality of the battery as well. Josh wants to know, how much did I pay for it? Too much.
Enough.
Too much. And the thing is, I don't get to keep this one. Well, if I break it, I probably do.
Yeah.
If I break it, I probably get to keep it. The thing is, it's not like I don't really get to keep it. I think, yeah, I don't worry about it. For all intents and purposes, it's mine. If I do anything to it, it's mine. If I want to keep it, I can keep it. It's all good. It's just something I'm working on with a buddy who wants it. I already have one paid off at GameStop, and then I have another pre-order at Amazon. That's the one that I'm giving away. And now I have a third one. It's like, I don't really need 3. Don't really need 3. You can be like, oh, give away 2 of them. I can't, like, give away one that I've been messing with and can't guarantee it's going to work and breaking all the warranties and you won't be able to claim it under warranty. I'd feel really bad about sending people one and then it just doesn't work. I'd have you send it back to me and I'll try to fix it, but it's also like, I don't want to mess with that, and I want to make sure that I have one that I haven't tampered with in the studio. But I have someone who will take either the tampered one, or if I decide to keep the tampered one, I'll give them the one that I pick up at retail. By the way, it's a white one that's coming to me. It's a white one. All my pre-orders are white ones. So I didn't get any of the neon. Didn't care about the neon. It's not the one that looks cool to me. So it's just, I'm sorry, it just does. I know some people might be into that car. It's white. It's white or nothing, baby.
Everything I've seen has been the white version. So
well, the white version, I think the white one's the one they had the most supply of, anyways.
Yeah, I didn't even realize there wasn't.
But it's also the highest demand one from what I've heard of the person who's selling them, or selling what he has, anyways. Is that the white one is like the high demand one. People don't really care about the other one as much. So I guess in theory I could have paid less and got the other one, but come on. People might think I'm faking it if you got the red and blue Joy-Con. No, it's fine. Get the white because there's no official white release Joy-Cons. You know I could reshell Joy-Cons, right, and make them white, and then you guys wouldn't even know. Well, I'm just saying, like, I could do some fancy video editing and just get rid of the bezel on here and just make it look brighter, and you guys be like, oh my god, look at that, Switch OLED. I know there's some questions that people have though, like people want to know, like, this example questions Austin didn't answer, like, is the card thing as flimsy? Don't know if the card flap is as flimsy. No one's answered that. No one's really talked about the build materials and, like, is that kickstand metal or not? No one's really talked about that. Or the hinge system, like, how does that hinge system work? Does it seem like a durable hinge system? Like, it seems sturdy when we see it in the few pictures and videos we've seen, but, like, how sturdy is it really? Is this something that you think is going to last, or is it a hinge system that's going to break? Austin actually had to take the hinges off to take his backplate off. Do you actually have to do that? Because he didn't know what he was doing. So do you even have to take it off? Because it seemed to me when he did it that it's actually attached to the backplate, so he might not have even needed to do that. Also, I know the design on the inside looked similar, but there is a difference in how it draws air in. There's also a difference in the fact that the actual kickstand has these, like, I don't know, half-inch, whatever the hinges that fold down into the Switch, and obviously have to take up space inside. So we'll see. We'll see. I plan to take it all the way apart. I'm a little scared because I don't think I've taken a Switch all the way down to the screen level yet. I'll do it for you guys. I'm more scared about putting it back together than taking it apart. I think it'll be fine taking it apart. You guys remember when I did the Xbox Series X on live stream? Well drunk. You guys got me super tipsy. I think there was like 4 shots of tequila that night. That was a
I
crazy
think I
night.
missed that one. That must be funny.
That stream I think ended with a sledgehammer to the PlayStation 3 that I own, and people getting all pissed about it.
Whoops.
And I'm like, I don't know. It was a bit that I said I was going to do really early in the stream before I was even drinking. I said, hey, if this works out, I'm going to sledgehammer my PlayStation 3. And they're like, yeah. And then it came time to do it, and everyone's like, no, don't do it. I want to buy it from you. I do feel a little bad. It was a PlayStation 3 that played PlayStation 2 games. I will say this, though, guys. It wasn't like the greatest running PlayStation 3. It worked when it wanted to. Maybe it could have been fixed and cleaned up to work all the time, but it needed some repairs and some part replacements. So I didn't just destroy it like a perfectly working one. It was one that you had to fiddle
permanently.
You had to fiddle with to make it work. Which I grew up in the age of having to fiddle with your everything to make it work. So
Yep.
whatever. But anyways, during that stream, I took apart a Series X for the first time. No video guides, no nothing. Never seen one taken apart. Took it apart, and Liquid Metal cooled it while drunk. Put it all back together, and somehow I had like 4 extra screws at the end. And I still to this day have no idea where they go. I've taken it apart again after, and still can't figure out where the hell those screws go. And that was while I was sober.
Nice.
All I know is it never had any problems, and it ran just fine, and it did run cooler, and everything was cool. Sometimes things are over-engineered. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Little over-engineered. After I took it apart again sober, and then all the way down, because I literally took everything apart and put it back together, and I still couldn't figure out where those screws went. And then I watched someone else's video on it, and I still couldn't tell watching their video where those screws went. I'm like, this thing isn't coming apart, and it works just fine.
You just randomly picked up
I used to make motherboards at a company called TTM, so like I know how this stuff works. This is not going anywhere. This is not falling apart. So
You probably picked up 4 random screws just being drunk.
yeah, it might not even been from the Series X. It was probably from some prior tear down of the Switch or something. And I'm like, oh yeah, this goes. No, it doesn't. Because by the way, when I take apart the Switch, I won't have to take apart this Switch because I already have a Switch that's apart. An OG 2017 Switch that's already apart. I have it here. It technically works. It doesn't have the card reader. This card reader up here, the Switch card reader, it doesn't have that anymore. But it's for parts. It technically works if you want to use it as a digital system, but it's already apart, so I'm just going to use that one. And then I already have my son's Switch Lite apart. He got a little mad at me today about that when he went to play it, and all of a sudden the backplate fell off. He's like, "Damn, what did you do?" I'm like, "What'd you do, kid? You broke it!" He just freaked out. Like, no, that's not what happened. J-Lo hits us with $20. Been a while, but glad to be back. I mean, I can't just do wine for that.
No.
Although I don't.
Hard
Tall
stuff.
boy shot glass goes away.
Tall boy shot glass goes
That's a double shot glass. Let's see. Let's just.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll do a gold
Goldie?
lager.
Well, I was gonna say a little Goldie.
A little Goldie. I had some vodka or something I could have done as well. But all right. Any other? Eric, want to pick out a couple questions from the chat quick? And we'll get this thing wrapped up here after. Let's say three more questions, and that'll be it. It can be for any of us. Doesn't have to be for me. I'm doing shots right now, so ask them questions, please.
What about Kirby? I mean, the game looks awesome.
Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on Kirby?
What about Bayonetta 3?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we never really had that direct talk. What are you guys' thoughts on those big games from the direct?
Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Dread were my games of the show. I wasn't too interested in Kirby, but I'm happy for Kirby fans because that looks like a really cool Kirby game. I'm just not really into the Kirby series, but I really like them sending it into full 3D. I think that's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I agree on that.
I got a very, very zombie apocalypse feeling from that Kirby game.
Yeah. It was like a city that looks like it's vegetated over, and
right.
It's interesting. The only thing I'll say about the Kirby footage, and I'm not one of those people that goes, "Oh, it looks ugly." I know there's people out there that think the Kirby game doesn't look great. Oh yeah, the power of Switch. By the way, the Switch can do better graphics than the Kirby. We've already seen it at launch. That's not this is an artistic choice by a
Mhm.
team that isn't very big. The Kirby team isn't that big. So for them to even attempt to do this is kind of like a shocker in the first place. That being said, the only criticism I will say, and this is probably this is like probably going to be mute by the time it comes out, is there were certain shots in the game where the world looked kind of empty. Now, that could be intentional to create a certain feeling. But then other parts in the gameplay looked great and like had enemies everywhere and like so I feel like they noted at the very beginning like this is very I know, but they said like this is very early sort of gameplay. So I kind of feel like they're just going to they're still fleshing things out. Like it hasn't gone gold. It's not done yet. Like it's still fleshing things out. This could have been footage from 6 months ago. Just kind of let it be and see where it goes. I'm just glad like the gameplay looked fine from what they did show. Looked fun. It looked like the evolution we got with a lot of side scrollers way back in the N64 days. Like, sweet. So we'll see what happens. It could end up being the greatest Kirby game ever made. I'm just glad that this is an ambitious game. Whether or not it works out for them, I don't know. It could end up being really bad. But nobody can deny the Kirby team that's been making nothing but side scrollers and spin-offs forever is making a 3D platformer.
They just
Breath of
the Wild it.
Like, they're at least trying to be ambitious, kind of like Pokemon Legends Arceus. It might suck, but they're trying to be ambitious. So we'll see. And by the way, expectations for Pokemon versus Kirby shouldn't even be in the same conversation. Pokemon, one of the largest, most established IPs in the world, with a well-known development studio. Expectations should be a little bit higher for that than Kirby, but they're both trying to be ambitious, and if they both miss the mark, I'm always going to applaud that they even tried. Because trying is a risk.
No, absolutely.
They could just literally give us a new Let's Go game, and it could sell 10 million, and then just laugh all the way to the bank. They did Legends Arceus instead. So, I'm pretty stoked just about the possibilities of these games. Bayonetta 3. The only thing that bothered me about it was just the voice acting. And I already knew going in that it was a different voice actor because that story already broke and the voice actor basically, the original Bayonetta voice actor in English said, yeah, I'm not doing it. I can't tell you, but like you're not going to do my voice basically. So that to me was a bit off-putting just from the Bayonetta's always sounded a certain way. And even though I know I can tell you're trying to mimic it, it's still like, you're not the same person. And it felt kind of weird also because it coincided with Bayonetta kind of looking a little different herself too.
That might
still
be
the
story.
long-legged
I think that's
thing,
story
but her whole
related
get
though.
up. She's had a different hairstyle in both games, under the prior games. Like having a new hairstyle is whatever to me. But like her whole get up. And by the way, this might not be what she even wears for the entire game, so that's not here nor there.
Right.
But it definitely gave up a different vibe. If that makes sense. But that's not
Did you
necessarily
play
a
the
bad
first two
thing.
games all the way through on the
What?
Wii U or Switch?
The original two?
Yeah, did you play the first original two all the way through on
Yeah,
the Wii U
yep,
and Switch?
yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it might be story related because time, like dimensional time travel, is a part of that game.
Yep.
And I don't want to spoil too much about the story. I don't know if nobody's play it, but
Plus, there's a potential tease of Dante somehow being in this game.
Dante from Devil May Cry. Where was that? I didn't see that.
Ooh, yeah. There's a potential that Dante is going to somehow. I don't want to dive too deep into it. I don't want to get in the spoiler territory. Just
Is that
in
a
case
rabbit
this
hole
is a real
thing that somebody?
It's just something that's floating out there that he's going to be in the game. What I will say is that Bayonetta 3, to me, it looks really good. I think the hard part for some people who are hardcore fans of the first two is one, obviously, I mean, I can even admit this. It did feel like, at least in this particular trailer, that her sexuality was toned down a little. I'm not sure why. It could have just been the get up. But even like when she did that one dance move thing, which is a new thing in this game for an attack, that's fine. But like, it looked a little awkward compared to the way Bayonetta's moved before in comparison. And again, this isn't final. All this could be changed. It could already be different. That's the way this footage you usually get in these things are not things that happened in the last couple months. They're usually, this was months ago, and what they're working on now isn't like polished enough per se to necessarily show you. But we'll show you what we had polished enough at the time to show other people on the team or show Nintendo or whatever. So like even her entire look might end up being slightly different by the time we get to the full release. Bayonetta, by the way, has had a different look in every single game. So I always find some of the criticism, her sexuality with her outfit's a little more toned down. It's like, so? Yeah, and then the first game, her whole outfit was just her hair. In the second game, she had an actual outfit that wasn't her hair. Oh no. So people are like, Nintendo ain't censoring shit. It's going to be an M-rated game. They're not censoring anything. Platinum Games can do whatever the hell they want. Nintendo just wants it to sell well. And we'll see. Bayonetta 2 obviously sold well enough on the Wii U for them to do Bayonetta 3. Like, the Wii U, it somehow sold enough for them to do the third. And it might not have even been one of those. Maybe it didn't sell enough. But what Nintendo says is the variety to our lineup is more important than necessarily the sales. Because Bayonetta is a very non-Nintendo game. They don't do M-rated. They don't do sexual innuendo. They don't do the kind of stuff Bayonetta does. Bayonetta don't give a fuck. And I don't think Nintendo is censoring Platinum. I think they're censoring it to not talk about the game. But they weren't censoring the game itself. Because they didn't do it in the second one. So why would they do it in the third one? Just because they have a bigger audience? I don't think... It's going to be M-rated. And it's supposed to only be played by adults anyway. So I don't think it's going to end up being an issue. The voice actor thing I thought was weird because I don't know what the logical reason was for that. I'm assuming it was budget cuts. That's the only thing I can think of, is that the OG voice actor probably wanted more money than the new one. But again, that's an assumption. It could have just been Platinum saying a creative decision. We want to go in a different direction. We want to show her personality changing in a certain way that we don't think you could bring to that character. Could have been something like that as well.
So I'm reading about that Dante and Bayonetta 3 thing. It looks like it's just speculation based on that very last part of the trailer. But we'll see.
A lot of people on the chat are saying it's a scalebound character.
Scalebound character? Okay.
Because
people noticed there was a lot of scalebound potential influence in this game.
Because the Scalebound's former lead designer is now directing Bayonetta 3.
Sure.
So
yeah, Scalebound. God.
Apparently,
I wish Scalebound would have been that IP that, like, when Microsoft said shit can it, that Nintendo would have been like, hey, Microsoft, you cool if we pick that up? Because I felt like the problem with Scalebound was Microsoft lack of patience. Platinum sometimes takes a long time with new IP. And Scalebound was such an ambitious kind of IP that I feel like Platinum was probably going to need like 6 years. And Microsoft didn't want to keep pumping money into this game, that looks amazing when they tease it, but like maybe you're teasing it too early. Maybe you shouldn't even mention it existed yet. Like, wait. Nintendo will wait. Well, then again, they did announce Bayonetta 3 back in 2017.
Yeah, Microsoft owns Scalebound, though, so I'm sure
that's
if
why I
it's
said.
something
That's why I
related,
said it
it's
would have had to
probably
be Nintendo coming in and making an agreement, because Sega owns Bayonetta. Nintendo had to make an agreement there. So, and with how buddy Microsoft and Nintendo, but I don't think an agreement's out of the question. It obviously didn't happen. And who knows? There could be a sour spot in Platinum about that cancelization, because I don't think that was their idea to cancel it. I think they were probably very proud about their progress. And so that's now why we're seeing potential scalebound influences entering other IP, because they're kind of, hey, we got this game we worked forever on and passionately about that we're never going to be able to put out. So
yeah,
what
maybe
we
the same
can control
model,
about it, let's put this in other games. So we'll see. Any other questions, Eric? Take one more.
I mean, without going way back up there.
Galactus noted that Hideki Kamiya said subtly that on Twitter that Bayonetta will be naked in the game, so it wasn't censored. I think that was probably, if he did say that, that's probably because Hideki Kamiya never holds back. Oh my god, if you ever follow his Twitter account, don't ever say anything to him or you'll get banned, blocked. But like, just follow what he says. He's very blunt about everything. But I wouldn't be surprised if he said that. The only reason I could think he said that because some of that criticism did exist that her sexuality was toned down. He could be like, dude, she's naked in this game. Like, shut the fuck up. I can see him literally telling a fan that because he has told fans to shut the fuck up before.
Nice.
So, like, Hideki Kamiya is not, let's say, a Nintendo poster boy developer.
So not a Nintendo ambassador.
No, I don't think he qualified for Nintendo ambassadorship.
Yeah.
But Nintendo also doesn't really care because the game that it's all tied to with him is a game that it's okay to talk that way. So it kind of sort of works as marketing.
Bayonetta 1 and 2, she isn't really fully naked either, by the way. I mean, she is kind of, but...
She kind in 1,
they don't show...
she sort of is, but you don't quite get the angle
Yeah.
Like certain moves when she's technically naked and doing attacks with her hair, you don't get the angle that shows the full nudity off. So if she actually is nude in this one, that's literally just a hey, she
We'll have
is
to wait and
nude.
see
Shut up.
about that one.
Don't worry
Yeah.
about censorship. I think it's just a don't worry. Nintendo ain't censoring shit. They just were controlling when we could talk about it. That's it. We got to do what the hell we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's also like there's a chance, by the way, guys. The beta to 3's it. It could just be a trilogy series, and so you never know. This could be the end of the series, or this could be an ongoing franchise that just goes on for as long as Nintendo's willing to fund it. So
Yeah, well, one theory going around is that this is Cereza as a younger, in the past, kind of like because of how the
and that can also explain why you maybe want a slightly different voice actor because you want her to sound a little
she
younger.
does sound
different.
higher pitched and she does look younger.
Yeah, like you would when you're younger. Yeah, so all right. You get any other questions, Eric? Or are we good?
I'm trying to find it, but it was along the lines of one person they asked, they've never played a Metroid game. Do you think it's a good idea that they just pick up and start from Dread?
Well,
Probably.
I mean, I couldn't really say that for 100% because you've never played a Metroid game before. But if you do have time to play a Metroid game, try to see if you can play Super Metroid on Switch Online since you have it right there available.
Sure.
I'll
say this.
But if you've played other Metroidvania games and you like them, like Hollow Knight, Ori, Bloodstained, I think you will have no problem probably just going ahead and buying Metroid Dread.
See, I'm of mind that if you watch all this footage and it looks like a game that you would enjoy, pick it the hell up. Because the same reason that I'm not going back to play the old Metroid games is the same reason that it might not be a great way to show to you, because this game does look like it plays different than the prior ones. So you can go back and play Super Metroid, but that might be nothing like what Dread is. So you might get an opinion that I don't like Metroid, but then you would have loved Dread.
Mm-hmm.
Right, true.
So we have enough gameplay footage out there of Dread at this point between the Dread reports and the trailers and obviously the media coverage now that, put it this way, if you're watching it and it looks like a hell of a lot of fun and something you want to play, don't worry that you haven't played Metroid before. Pick it up. We already talked about the story's going to be recapped. You won't miss out on that part. That's always the big thing when you go to the 5th game in the series. What story are you going to miss out on? Nothing. They're giving it to you because they know it's been 20 years and a lot of people that are playing this will be their first Metroid game. They know that. They know there's going to be a lot of first-timers trying this out. So if what you see looks good, looks fun, looks like something you enjoy, maybe you want to wait for reviews. Maybe it's like, oh, I think it looks good, but maybe the final product is another. Fine, wait for reviews. I will say about waiting for reviews, this is just my general opinion about reviews. You really got to find a reviewer that has the same taste in games as you to review the game. Just reading like IGN reviewed this or Kotaku reviewed, you got to look at the actual reviewer and the kind of games that he scores well and the kind of games he doesn't and see if you agree with those opinions. If you agree with those opinions, then chances are their opinion on that will be more relevant to you. But even then, everybody's different. So reviews aren't even a be-all, end-all of if you'll enjoy the game or not. Just watch it.
Here's the main thing.
So I wish there was a demo for everything, too. That would help.
Yeah. Here's the thing I think people are concerned about. Is the game too hard for them? How are the controls? How responsive? Because it looks fun, but they want to be able to jump in and be able to play the game like that and enjoy it without being too frustrated. So I suggest you go look at the previews that they had in this recent preview event, because some of the controls that they talked about, they said some of them said it takes just a little bit of time to get used to, but they were dashing and jumping around like crazy just in no time. So if you have any concerns about the controls, but you do like what you see, it sounds like there's no cause for concern there.
Yeah.
It looks like if you already like these kind of games, you should go ahead and pick it up.
If they would just give us demos, I think that demos should exist for every game, especially single player ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. As far as we're aware, there's no demo. Maybe there will be a launch demo. I have no idea. They could decide to announce that next week. Hey, you're not sure you want to buy it day one? Here's a demo. Nintendo would be smart to do that, by the way. I think demos help sell games. They don't hurt sales, in my opinion. Demos show confidence in your product, in my opinion.
Especially ones that are...
Because let me think about Octopath Traveler had multiple demos. Look at that game. So phenomenal. Like, be confident in your product. Put a demo out there. It's only going to help.
As long as the demo is...
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you're confident in your product, if you're not confident and you put out a demo, then the demo probably isn't going to show your lack of confidence and show issues with the game.
A demo for Metroid Dread might be hard to do because then you have to either give them a lot of abilities to start the bat to try the game out, or give them nothing and then block off pass. So it's like, how do you demo that properly?
We say that, and yet at every GameStop and Best Buy there'll be a demo kiosk with Metroid Dread level on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, as a Metroid player,
if we would have had E3 in person this year, we would have already played hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those. It's one of the. I mean, they obviously had a hands-on demo available. So like, yeah, I think it's one of those things that I don't know. I think they could have easily just gave you one of the very first levels and not gave you any of the story and just said, "Have fun, see if you like it." I don't think it would have been that big a deal, especially if it's like one of the first 2 levels. Who cares? You're not gonna have all the abilities yet, anyways. So, there was one other thing I wanted to get to. The Elemental Hero, the Shadow Link, Dragon Wolf King said, Why has Nintendo been hiding the OLED? Is it because of the Pro that the developers are making 4K games? And if so, is it more info of the Pro coming next year or so? So this kind of covers the general things of stuff we talked about today. Mm-hmm. What I'll say is that they're not hiding anything because of the Pro. That's got nothing to do with anything right now. I don't think they're hiding anything, per se. I think, as SuperMetalDave put it earlier in the stream, that they don't need or feel like they need extra marketing to sell it. It is sold out in most markets that it's in. I think Australia is the one market it hasn't sold out in yet, but most markets it's completely sold out in. Because of that, they don't feel like they need to push it anymore. There obviously could be concerns where Nintendo knows they're just not going to have a lot of stock of it this year. So pushing it as well right now, marketing-wise, may not make as much sense as next spring when they might potentially have more stock available. So that's another reason why they might not necessarily be pushing out. It'll be available, but maybe not widely. Maybe not everybody's going to get their hands on it that wants it this holiday. I think that's reasonable to consider after the last holiday season during the pandemic, when it's still hard to get a lot of those systems today. Even normal Switches in the US have only recently been rather easy to get in the last couple of months. So I think they're anticipating that you probably, if you didn't pre-order it, you're probably not going to be able to get one anyways, is probably Nintendo's thought process at this point this year. Beyond all of that, the Pro, even if that is a thing, Nintendo publicly denied, but even if it is a thing and is coming next year, that would have nothing to do with marketing for this. They have a holiday season coming up.
Yeah, I think they're going to market it actually probably in November. I think you'll see some commercials by then. I don't think they care about marketing it right now in October. I think they'll push Metroid Dread hardcore, and then they can do some commercials for holiday for Switch OLED and Switch Lite and Switch OG.
Don't be surprised if there's a $400 bundle this holiday that includes this and, say, one of the Pokemon games or something like that. Or if there's a themed one this holiday. Like, don't be surprised if that's just Nintendo's like, look, we don't have to worry about launch. Let's worry about November for the holiday when we have our next big batch of units coming in. And then we'll go from there and try to convince people to pick it up if they haven't already.
Yeah, basically advertising it now is not going to do them anything, really.
Yeah, I think, I did note, it is weird they haven't advertised it. But what I think is, again, my weirdness with it isn't that Nintendo's not advertising it, it's that it's just how they're not letting the media do what they want with it, yet they're not dinging us that somehow got it. It's a confusing situation that I don't understand from Nintendo's perspective. They're thinking, if they want to lock down all the information, then why can people like me and others make videos that happen to get our hands on it early, but then media can't? And, like, are you scrambling? Are you organized? You know what's going on? Do you just not care? But if you don't care, then why aren't you letting media do what they want with it? It's a very weird situation with OLED that I've never seen Nintendo do before, and I've been through multiple hardware launches, worked at media outlets that got hardware early. I have no idea what the hell Nintendo's doing right now. It's a very weird. It's not like V2 Switch. They let media do what the hell they wanted with V2 Switch. But they're not this time around. I can't really figure out why. Some people said maybe because it won't show that well. The problem is it actually is kind of showing well. There's people actually being pretty convinced right now when they see the few comparisons that are out there. What's funny is that all these people that have a Switch OLED, I think to date mine is still the only one that shows actual one-to-one comparison between two systems at the same time. Like, I've watched all the videos on it and nobody else has done that yet. And it's weird to me because I feel like that's the thing people care about the most.
I see
what
some
does
screenshots
this actually
of
look
people
like
doing
compared to other Switches?
Comparisons, but not a video.
Yeah, so like, and I don't know, and like people that saw my video are like, actually, it kind of looks bigger than I thought. It looks brighter than I thought. It looks better than I thought. It's like, it looks good. So I don't know if Nintendo's a lack of confidence. I think it's like a V2. It's going to slide in and replace the current Switch. And Nintendo doesn't think they need to market much of it, at least now. Maybe for holidays, maybe some bundles. Maybe they'll want to push it as a hot new thing. Especially, I guarantee you this. The moment they decide to phase this out, just wait. Just wait. The marketing campaign's going to come. And it's going to come hard. And they're going to talk about how, oh yeah, don't worry. They'll always remind you every opportunity they get. If you have this, you can still play all the current games. But also, we have this system, and look at how beautiful these games look on it. Like, just wait till you see like a full-on Breath of the Wild 2 gameplay experience that they show over shoulder onto this, and you see how that's playing, and then you hold up your Breath of the Wild game, and you hold it here, and you're like, what the fuck? That looks like next gen compared to this. What the hell? Because the colors are going to be so much more vivid. And granted, it's Breath of the Wild 2. It should look better anyways. So it's not even fair, but I just know this is going to happen like next E3. It's going to be insane. So anyway,
you know what I think they're going to do though is a Black Friday $250 for the Switch OG throughout the holidays, and then they're going to also have like probably a bundle with OLED or something like that with the game for $400.
Sure. And guys, the Mario Kart bundle is coming back with the OG Switch. It just is a bit. It just assume that bundle's coming. It's been here every holiday. It's going to keep coming until they're done making this thing, and then maybe they'll bundle an OLED in with it. I have no idea. The Mario Kart bundles keep on giving. They keep being bestsellers every year, so they're just going to keep doing it. I would love next holiday if to be like a Mario Kart 9 bundle, or as I keep begging you, Nintendo, where is my Zelda Special Edition Switch? How do we have the best-selling Zelda game of all time, and we don't have a Special Edition Switch? How does that happen?
Mario Kart 8 is their GTA 5.
I mean, even Triforce Heroes had a Zelda-themed 3DS come out around the same time. It wasn't a Triforce Heroes 3DS. It didn't matter. It was a Zelda-themed 3DS that came out around Triforce Heroes. If you don't do it for Breath of the Wild 2, I'm going to be very disappointed. Very disappointed. There's no excuse for Breath of the Wild 2 to not have a special edition.
Yeah. Even
if it's a Switch Lite, which I'm pissed off it's a Switch Lite because I'm going to buy a Switch Lite that I'm never going to use. But unless they put the OLED panel in it, even then I probably still won't use it. I'll just use the bigger one. Still. At least they gave us Skyward Sword Joy-Con, I guess, right? I guess that's something.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Monster Hunter gets a whole themed dock and themed system, and Skyward Sword just gets some Joy-Cons that no one can buy. Have a good day.
And an amiibo.
What the amiibo's whatever, but I don't mind the amiibo. All right, that's gonna do it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys tuning out tonight. That was a great episode 21. Thank you so much to SuperMetalDave for sticking out. This was a longer than normal episode, but I knew it was going to be because we had so many great topics to talk about. Thanks, Eric, for sticking out as well. You guys are awesome. We'll be back next week, which is, you just wait. Next week's podcast is going to be interesting because, I'll have had almost a full week with Switch OLED at that point. So it's going to be a pretty interesting conversation. I might even just have Eric kind of interview style on me.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, man, questions away, get questions from the chat, queue them up.
Yeah.
Spit it at me, see what we could do. I don't know. I mean, I want to hype up Dread again, too. We'll see.
Yeah.
We should, I think by Wednesday next week, we probably will have the launch trailer at that point. So probably like that final big marketing push.
Mm-hmm.
I will see. They might wait till Thursday, but I presume they'll probably do it on Wednesday in case anyone still wants to pre-order a physical copy. But yeah. Otherwise, cool.
Yeah.
We'll catch you guys next week.
I'll catch you on Friday. We normally do this too. Dave, anything you want to plug?
Yeah.
Where can they follow you? Stuff like that.
Yeah, SuperMetalDave64 on Twitter and YouTube. If you want to see the best trailer for Bayonetta 3 on YouTube, bar none, check out my channel because I have it on my channel. I temporal AI upscaled the gameplay trailer into 4K and it looks awesome.
Nice.
So if you want to see the game look better than it's ever going to look in real life.
No. It's more about cleaning up how bad the trailer actually looked for the compression. So you'll see a very clean representation of it.
Perfect.
Check it out.
That again, I'm still gonna hold the. It's still not gonna look that good on the Switch right
Oh well.
Because one, it's not in 4K, and two, like Switch is known for having blurry stuff in those kind of games. So we'll see what happens though. Maybe the pro's out, and we ain't gotta worry about it. All right, folks.
Perfect.
Catch you guys later. Have a good night, everyone.
Later.
Bye.